9C, can we do them like this?
9H. There's a resolution of sole source procurement resolution. You guys need to see, can you hear me? Approve first.
Oh.
As part of that, before the motion. So it's actually a two-parter. I'm sorry.
Hector, can you hear me?
Okay.
This thing kind of all came together.
It's all right.
Looking at it going, what's that thing? Like, oh.
So I should, when I make the staff recommendation for 9H.
Well, when we start talking about that, I'm gonna.
They should be able to hear you.
I'll ask Lassie to ask me to come up and say something.
Okay, we'll improvise.
All right.
That was a little curveball tonight.
You see, we got 700 views.
Did it? Wow. Good job.
That's a lot. It wasn't me.
No, I wish we can. That's awesome.
Wish we could get 700 views of a meeting.
It was so hard to pay attention during the thing.
It was like I
views.
don't know what they said sometimes because I was too focused on.
Right, the comments and everything else.
Yeah.
Same here. You know, I'm giving Don like one more minute.
We had it, and then it just went away.
I wouldn't give him the minute. I'd give the microphones the minute.
Nope.
No.
Test. Test.
Wow, that's really good. That makes me. That's awesome.
It
I'm
is.
still thinking about that. That was cool.
Yeah. I'm impressed.
And we ended.
We test for Mike.
Test. No. We ended like on time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
just
really
a
good
couple
with that.
minutes off past
I'm really
5.
good with that. I was like, okay, and we're done.
I was like, sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, we did good. It's really good if you consider that 500 people have already voted. So.
Test. All right. Hasib, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, thank you.
We're good? Okay. No, Don was gonna attend.
He said he was attending.
I call to order the meeting of the City of Manassas Park Governing Body for October 20th, 2020. First, we have the usual statement for the General Assembly's approval of the Governor's amendments for the biennial budget. The governing body may now meet electronically without a quorum, actually assembled in a single location and without the in-person governing body members voting on the participation. Of those who are remoting in the following benchmarks for the meeting have been met. First, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the current COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with the Code of Virginia. Second, the declared emergency makes it impractical or potentially unsafe for the governing body to assemble in a single location, and guidance from the state and federal government support this determination. Therefore, the governing body will be meeting with various members participating electronically through GoToMeeting. Third, the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the governing body. Fourth, the governing body will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with the Code of Virginia. Fifth, notice has been and will continue to be provided to the public using available methods. Lastly, we have made and will continue to make arrangements for the public access through electronic means, including the ability to comment. Those participating electronically are Council Members Miriam Machado, Council Member Hector Sendejas, Council Member Hasib Javed, and those participating in person are Council Member Alana Mensing Councilmember Donald Shoemaker, and Vice Mayor Preston Banks. First, we have the approval of the agenda. Item 9I was added to the agenda and will subsequently be uploaded to the website. There is a closed session under Virginia State Code or Virginia Code 2.2-3711A, paragraph 7. There's 3 under paragraph 7 and 1 item under paragraph 8. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. Please join us for a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Alana Mincing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item is citizens' time. Is there anyone signed up who would like to make a public comment or anyone who is not signed up? No. Okay, and has anyone sent any emails or Facebook messages? All right, so seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move to the next agenda item. There's no public hearing. We'll go down to consent agenda. On the consent agenda, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Is there anything under the
I don't-
consent agenda?
I don't think we have any.
Nothing? Oh, we have nothing on there either. Oh, we have unfinished business, so we'll get to that. So under unfinished business, we have Phase 3 rezoning, RZ 20-06, the joint public hearing, governing body and planning commission, which was held on October 6, 2020. I'm gonna go ahead and discuss that.
Thank you, Mayor Banks, and members of the governing body here and at home. My name is Michelle Berry, and I am the zoning administrator with the City of Manassas Park. I've coordinated with the applicant a little presentation here. There were some changes made to this rezoning application based on the comments and discussion that occurred at the public hearing. I'd like to go through those with you. So first is they enhanced the rear of Building B, the facade. They have some faux or spandrel glass windows added to the back along with some horizontal striping that is now further enhanced by the breakup of the blank facade. And you can see that in the after photograph.
Is that looking down Manassas Drive?
Yes, you'd be heading east on Manassas Drive, heading away from Euclid down towards Railroad and Digital. And that's what you would be seeing. And that is the complete entirety of Building B, even the brick component of it. So it is a very large building, and they did a good job of mixing materials and adding different architectural components to break that up, especially when you compare it to the one before. On the left side. The other two elements that they have changed is they are adding a fence to the north side. You can see the fence location in blue. As part of the concern about some visual enhancement at that corner, which would be the northwest corner of the site, they are proposing additional landscaping or hardscaping for this development, and I wanted to add that these have all been added as proffers within the revised proffer statement. The next is signage. They are proposing to add signage for the downtown area, either within the median of Manassas Drive, before you come to the intersection of Park Center Court and Market Street now, or they'll add it in the right of way near Building B. So there's a few locations that they are proposing to add some downtown signage.
That is visible from both sides, like going
I
west, going
suspect
east.
so. I mean, I think it will depend on the location, but yes, if it's not.
Yeah, my plan would be on the eastern side, coming in from the railroad tracks. We'd probably have some additional signage on that side, so that on both entry points to the downtown we'll have signage. And I'll talk about it actually tonight in my manager report, kind of the branding, wayfinding, signage kind of program next steps. And, you know, potentially also, we're talking about along Euclid Avenue and the future Connor Drive extension, we'd want to have signage there as well. So we want to have multiple signs highlighting the downtown.
Right. I want people to know that it's there and how to get there and that you're entering that kind of area, because you may not know initially that's where you are. So.
This next slide is showing probably not too well, but there was a consideration and determination about street widths within the development. As you recall, there was a concern with the fire marshal having street widths 26 feet wide, especially the alleyways. And so the applicant has increased the alleyways to 26 feet wide, and that is shown on the development plan. While we were at the Planning Commission last week for their recommendation, at the time we thought all the roads were 26 feet in width. So there was some recommendations from the Planning Commission. I'll get that back to that when I discuss the recommendation. But just to clarify, at this point, there is one road that is 24 feet in width. That is road D1. And then D2, although it states it on the plan, they are proffering that be 26 feet wide. As well, all the alleyways will be 26 feet wide. So there will only be one road that's 24 feet in width. And we did consult with the fire marshal. That width for D1, which is the private road that is really further extending Park Center Court to the east through the residential area. That is okay to be that width because you can access those units with the alleyways behind them, which are 26 feet wide. Apparently, you only need one point of access for the fire equipment to be the required width of 26 feet for it to qualify for meeting the fire safety standards. So these are the conditions that I basically went through with visuals, with the exception of the noise study. They did clarify language in that proffer, saying that they would be implementing the mitigation strategies that were identified in the noise study. That was not included in the proffer, so that really does clarify what their intent is to do once they conduct that noise study. What will be the end result of that? It will be implemented for the adjacent units. And as I said before, the Planning Commission did make a recommendation last Wednesday, and their recommendation was to approve the rezoning as provided at that time, which was October 7th, with the updated we call it master development plan, along with the proffers, which were included. All these items were included with that revision date. When they came to the waivers, they approved all of the zoning waivers, with waivers 2006A through 2006L. And they recommended it as it was presented in the original public hearing. And then finally, the public facility waivers, at the time, they recommended approving C through G as provided and stated in the public hearing. There were some changes to A and B. B was to reduce is a reduction in width for alleyways down to 20 feet. Now, because of the increase to 24 and 26, they determined to eliminate and delete that waiver based on the information they had at the time, and then they changed waiver A, public facilities waiver at 2006A to increase that to 26 feet. So it's a little clarification from the staff report that was provided in your packet. They did delete B and decided to increase or change the street width to private street width up to 26 feet, since at the time staff as well as the applicant believed that the minimum street width within the entire development was 26 feet. After the planning commission's decision, the applicant did go back and discover that one road had to be 24 feet, which was D1. So at this point, staff is recommending what is being proposed now, which is everything's dated October 15th, along with the proffers, which include all the changes you see here on the screen, as well as identifying that in public facilities waiver A, that the private streets would be 26 feet, or the alleyways would be 26 feet. In public facilities waiver A, they are increasing the road width of D2 to 26 feet, road D1 to 24 feet, and then for public facilities waiver B, they're increasing the alleyway width to 26 feet. So I'm happy to repeat that. It is a bit confusing, but staff is happy with the changes, and we are recommending approval with materials dated October 15th, 2020. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Thanks, Mickey. Let's start with those participating remotely. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm glad that the applicant is improving their application, the process, the design guidelines. I can see the willing of the applicant to work with the city, with the planning commission, or with the governing body. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay, that's it?
Yes.
All right, thanks. Councilmember Sendejas, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Javed, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just got one question regarding the facade of building B. If you go back to the first slide, on the left of that building, is that a loading dock facing Manassas Park Drive?
There is a loading dock area on the would be our right, and it is screened by a brick wall. I don't know how much of it you will be able to see when you're driving down Manassas Drive, but the intent there is to shield it from view. And I think it's deep enough where the trucks will be able to at least be partially screened. I'll have the applicant, if they could probably address that further. But I know the intent was to try to screen that area. That's why that brick wall is there.
I see, okay. And then my follow-up question to that was, if we're reducing the street sizes, will these trucks be able to get in and out of that facility for delivery?
Yes.
I mean, these are probably 18-wheelers, so I'm assuming they'll be coming in and out of the development.
Right, and we did actually ask the applicant to provide a turning radius, a turning movement schematic for large vehicles, and that they demonstrated that such trucks could maneuver throughout the development.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah, I have a question about, I'll do this so you can hear me, about waiver F for sidewalks. I have a question about whether there is going to be a sidewalk on both sides of every street, not alleyway, but every street in this development.
Yeah, I'll defer to the applicant to address that. I
Sure.
believe that's true, at least on the frontage of the units. I believe there is a sidewalk, but I don't have the
You can come up to the microphone.
Good evening, Jessica Brasher with Land Design Consultants. The waiver, and it's based on our waiver exhibit, is basically for D2, just because we have parking, perpendicular parking across from parallel parking, so we're not providing a sidewalk there. And then at the end of D1, on that road that connects the two alleyways, we have a wall, and so we only have a sidewalk on one side. Other than that, except for the alleys, we're providing sidewalks on both sides of the street.
You said not on D2?
D2 is on one side, and then the side where there is perpendicular parking will not have a sidewalk.
We don't have that.
If you look right here, this is all parking right here, so there's no sidewalk there, but there is a sidewalk over here on the other side. This is all straight in parking, so there's no need for a sidewalk there.
There's actually a retaining wall there too,
And this is the retaining wall.
between the two parking.
Or between C and D2, or
Yeah,
road C
between
and
two
D2.
parking and D2, and it also provides a clean separation, residential and commercial.
Councilman Shoemaker, I have the
Here's-
big plans
here's
if you
outside.
wanted to look at that. I have them in paper copy, which are better to see if you want to.
And on D1, it's going to be on both sides on D1?
Yes.
Correct. It's on both sides. It's only on the section that connects the two alleyways at the end of D1, where we only have on one side, which is the side closest to. Now it's at the end. Yeah, that's
So there's a sidewalk here.
correct, but not on the side of the wall.
Okay, I mean,
Yes.
so there's a sidewalk there. There's a wall right here.
Mhm.
Is that it?
Are we doing the other ones too, or just the A through G on that section? Are we asking questions about?
You can ask questions, I believe, about the entire application.
Okay, because you'd only gone over kind of that part. I was gonna ask another one on a different one. On 20-06A, on the waiver side, that was on the proper side, but the other one's on the waiver side. What does the 82% calculation include?
Well, it includes, all the area with the exception of the VRE parking garage. With the VRE parking garage, that percentage of residential actually is reduced to 63%.
So it's 62% counting the
63.
63.
When you include the VRE garage square footage.
Is City Hall in that calculation?
Yes.
Is the reduction of the 10 units that the developer has said that are only going to do 164 instead of 174, is that in that number too?
I believe so, yes.
So it didn't change? It didn't change when they reduced the
I
number of
think
units by
it
10?
It changed to 81, like 1%. And I don't think they added in the VRE garage at that time. They just added that in when they did the subsequent phases. So if you want that, somebody's gonna have to calculate that, and that's not my strong suit.
So the 81, is that include 1A, 1B, and 2? Or just 1A?
No, 81, without the VRE garage, includes the entire development, with the exception of the VRE garage. So phase 1A, phase 1B, and phase 2.
It wouldn't include the part of, the city hall that's on lot 1A either.
That is correct, right? Because they actually did a separate calculation that includes the soon-to-be acquired parcel 1A as well. But that, since it's not part of this application, I want to discuss those percentages.
So the current percentage is 81.
Excluding the VRE garage.
And then that would be what, 60, 62 or 64 with the VRE, because it's going to be,
The 63 with the VRE garage.
right, so, but it's going to go less because, or more because there'll be more commercial.
Right. Well, you're adding in the square footage of the garage, that's what brings down the.
Right, I'm just thinking with the 10 less units that have been.
Oh, that, well, it appeared to be only 1%. Oh, with the VRE garage, I don't, I have to
He's
defer
saying
to
it's gonna be
that.
more like 62%.
Oh, probably, yes, I got it, yeah.
Okay, so about 62% with the, counting the VRE garage. Okay. You can come back to me if the other people have questions.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't.
I wanted just to, a question, just to reiterate, I asked at last meeting, that the VRE parking garage is gonna have a no overnight parking policy, and that's gonna be for weekdays and weekends?
Yeah, so we're still in the process of negotiating that, but that is what the intent is. There will be no overnight parking.
Mm-hmm. Are we gonna have any limitations for City Hall's parking?
And we're gonna control that.
Okay.
So, yeah, because we'll control it, then I'm going to bring back recommendations once we have kind of final design of how much should be earmarked for employees and then how much for customers of the downtown, and what should we do with that customer parking? Is it 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking? Or what are we doing to kind of prevent VRE users from parking on there during the day? But I'll come back with actual recommendations once we get the final.
Okay.
Just like I will for all the surface lots as well, and our entire downtown parking strategy once I get fidelity with Hosta Capital across the street on what the new parking arrangement will be and what the final kind of parking layout will be with the downtown. Then we have to come back and have a longer conversation about what kind of parking structure we're going to have in terms of 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking. Where do we want to have that to ensure that commercial users are parking in our downtown?
Okay.
And just also in the current, I say current, but I mean as in what was approved in 2006, is that the city already has the ability, I believe, to do 2-hour parking with parking meters on Manassas Drive currently. Like, we already have that right to do that without changing anything. Like, we can exercise that option, I believe.
Yeah, from my reading of the lease agreement, you're right. The metered parking is, we're allowed to install meters on Market Street and Manassas Drive, technically. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not advocating that we do
Yeah.
meters.
No, we
I'm
don't
just
wanna do
saying
that.
that we do have that already in the current. I mean, if we want to change that and make it something different and supersede that, that would be one thing.
Joel is trying to get rid of that agreement entirely.
Right. But I just wanted for, that people, that we did agree to that. So there is precedent for putting different kinds of restrictions on the parking because we did it. They did
We
it.
could also put restrictions on the parking here at City Hall lot as well. We just have to take over maintenance of that lot now.
Mm-hmm.
My only concern with parking is that if we're saying no overnight parking in the VRE garage, I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but the applicant did say at one of the very first times when they were up here is that they were assuming that the garage was going to be the overflow parking for the development. And so my concern is people will move in, they'll say they'll have enough parking, that the parking garage is there. They're like, oh, I can have people stay the night and park in the garage, and that's not going to be true. And so it'll be okay if somebody's going to come over for dinner, have a party, whatever, but they're not going to be able to have overnight guests and have them park in the garage if there's not enough parking in the other places in the development. That's my concern, is that we're setting that up for some kind of buyer's remorse, that they buy in and they realize that there's a lot of limitations, and we have our right to what our limitations are in terms of we don't want overnight people, we don't want people parking there for 2 weeks at a time kind of thing, which I completely agree with, but I'm concerned that our future residents will move in, have the extra parking, but not realize that there's gonna be limitations on that, and
Well, that's just in the VRE parking, the 3 levels that are VRE controlled. I mean, the lower level is city controlled, and then we also have public parking lots too that the city may or may not have a problem with overnight parking. So it really is whatever.
But can the applicant address that? I'm not sure that was your intent to have the VRE garage be overflow parking for residents. Yeah, if you guys want to address that.
Your Honor, John Walsh Colucci representing the applicant.
Hey, John.
That is not the intention. The property is adequately parked with surface parking at the units, and it is not anticipated that the VRE garage will serve as overflow parking or fill-in parking for the residential units. It's going to be parked exactly like I can't remember the name of the parking garage that's on the last one on the Metro line. Can't park there overnight either. That's what this is going to be as well. So we're not expecting that as parking.
okay, because we
Hasn't
just,
been planned that way. And the parking study has been done by the road slate shows that.
okay. How many parking spaces are in this development, not counting the garage?
Jessica can tell you, we've got 1,500, I believe.
Yeah. So,
You just told them. You can unmask to actually speak aloud.
The exact number of total parking spaces is 1,576.
So there,
It's 1,007, and then if you add the spaces that are not counted, the parallel parking on public road A and the VRE garage, it would be 1,576. But without the VRE garage, it's 1,007.
And that is satisfactory for the residential and other uses.
And then each residential phase will also have visitor parking in addition to the garage and the driveways.
so there are 164 units planned, and each one has a garage and one spot in the driveway. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
2
it's,
spaces per unit. And then each phase has, I think phase 1A has 53 visitor parking spaces, and phase 2 has 50.
so the 1,007 is actually includes 1B and 2 and phase 1B and phase 2 as well.
Correct. It's the cumulative proposed number of parking spaces.
Okay, for how many residential units?
300.
300. We're asking a lot of questions because one of our biggest concerns in the city, we just had a town hall, it went for 2.5 hours, was about parking. So it's an issue all over the city, and we had to make sure that we have adequate parking, because there is no other parking in this area. I mean, there's no other residential area to spill over to, and just want to make sure that once our new residents move in, that they're going to be satisfied that they have enough spaces for them and the guests to live there.
Correct. And this number that I'm giving you, it does not take into consideration the shared parking. It's just the proposed, where actually our plans show that the proposed numbers are fulfilling the requirements. But obviously there is that shared parking component and we have compatible uses here for shared parking, which would be the office and the entertainment and the homes. And so while one is, the peak demand of each of them are different. And so while the entire city hall would go home and take their cars away from the parking, that you would have either the visitors parking spaces for the residential units, or all the people that are coming in for entertainment purposes. So there is complementary uses that have different peak demands. And so we feel confident that the number is sufficient.
Is the 1,007 include The city hall parking, the commercial parking, yes?
Yeah.
So that's not directly like residential parking?
No,
No.
no, that's why each residential phase has, 50 and 58 visitor parking spaces.
Yeah. I mean, I live in a townhouse and I see what happens, and 53 spots for 164 units, while it may meet the requirement, I'm not going to argue that you're meeting the requirement. I'm just saying is that that's about one space for every 3 units. There are a lot of units where there are, 3 and 4 vehicles, even where I live, and we're constantly playing vehicle movement because there are not enough spaces for the number of actual drivers living there, especially 17 and 18, 19-year-olds who are driving, who are not adults per se. They may have vehicles, so it concerns me.
Okay. Yeah, and just as a reminder, and these users are clearly going to be different from others in the city center, in the apartments, but just as a reminder, the current actual, when I did the drone analysis, real parking ratios for the apartments are 1.22 per unit, right? They're providing much more. Now, clearly, these are going to be not apartment users, so you're clearly going to have more. But again, that's a lot less than in other parts of the city. And again, the original pitch, the original vision with the city center was that it's because of its proximity to the VRE, you wouldn't have as major parking requirements as you see in the other parts of the city. I'm sure that was a contested point. It was proven to be true, at least for our first couple apartment buildings with City Center and Artena. Whoever made that proposition was accurate, at least for apartments. I'm not going to say that that's going to be 100% accurate for 2/2s, but at least we're seeing that trend happen in terms of proximity to the VRE and the decreasing parking counts.
I mean, just respectfully that, there is no mass transit on the weekends, and, you could take VRE for your commute, but you got to get around in the evening.
But that's true also, again, for the apartments, and we saw that the ratios are a lot less.
Right, but at this price point, it's going to take 2 incomes to buy these. I mean, unless, I don't know who makes enough money to, individually to have a $400,000 unit. I mean, they're going to be very nice. I can't wait to look at them. But the reality is they're going to be at least 2 adults with both of them will have to have careers, and they will both have to have vehicles. I mean, that's a minimum.
Councilmember Shoemaker, everything you said is valid, but I just want to point out that they've met the requirements under our code for parking. So that's not really a valid reason to vote against it for parking, because they've exceeded the minimum required.
And I have already said in my previous response that I know that they have met the minimum.
Right. No, I understand your concern, but it really is, if there's real concern about that, we really need to amend the ordinance as far as the number of spaces required.
It is a minimum.
Right.
You got any more?
Not on that, no.
I've got a final question, and that's on the traffic flow. I think there's an egress from phase 2, is that right? Onto Manassas Drive. But my question is, what are we assuming that they're going to return to home to phase 2? Or is there going to be a stoplight there, or they're just going to have to go further down to Manassas Drive and
What are you talking about? Are you talking about like where Bank Street is, or?
Yeah,
Is it?
I'm trying to figure out how people are going to return home on when they live in phase 2. Yes.
Right, I think that it's gonna remain a right in, right out.
Okay, a right in.
To circle back.
Does it have to circle around, or will they? Okay, or are we assuming they're going to make a left at the light?
Yeah, they can make a left on the Park Center Court and then hang a left at the next road.
And zip through. Okay.
Bank right here, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
But we're not anticipating putting a stoplight there where that ingress egress is, the right in, right out.
No.
Okay.
And not a bank either, because there will be no adjoining street across from it.
Right, because that's just too close to have stoplights, I think.
Well, no, there's going to be no street at Bank Street. There's no mirror street on the other side. It's going to be townhouses there.
Right. Okay, thanks. Is that it for questions or comments? Any council members have any more? Seeing none? Okay.
Vice Mayor, I believe John Wood wants to get up and make a statement.
Oh,
Is that okay?
sure, John.
With your permission, sir.
Sure.
Just, it's not much. This is the end of a remarkable process, actually. This proposal is unique to the city. It's unique actually in our practice. This proposal creates a four-corner downtown with a lively public plaza and an active retail area for the city that we hope is going to wipe away some of the distant memories of an area that was supposed to perform and do as well. It's an appealing location for an anchor tenant that can take advantage of the VRE parking on nights and weekends. There are infrastructure improvements that are going to be constructed in accordance with this plan, and new civic facilities without taking on additional city debt, and in fact improving the city's financial position during the course of this project. We have been extremely grateful for the city's concurrence in the comprehensive agreement. It was a difficult and complex document to put together. It was done as recently as June of this past year. It was the framework for everything that has happened since. It set out the parameters of this extraordinary process. And we're also very grateful for this governing body's approval of the Phase 1A rezoning. The approval of this tonight, if the council is so moved, will bring that action, the Phase 1A rezoning, under the proffers that are being proposed with respect to 1B2, for Phase 1A, of course, is unproffered. It will now be proffered with the same set of proffers that are applicable to 1B2. And it will begin, we believe, a remarkable transformation for the city. We cannot fail to thank you, the governing body of the city, Mr. Palco, Mr. Crowhurst, Ms. Berry, and though I see him not, Mr. Odell. All have contributed mightily, and I mean on your behalf, to this process. It was a give and take at every level of this process. In the negotiation, there was no, well, we'll just do what you want us to do kind of thing. It was a negotiation back and forth, and your people worked on your behalf assiduously and well. And we are pleased to have worked with them. We are pleased to have been a part of this process. We trust your good judgment, and we hope we can be a part of a transformation of the city of Manassas Park. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John, for your statement and your kind words on city staff. All right. Read the staff recommendations. Staff recommends that the governing body approve rezoning RZ number 20-06, subject to the revisions as of October 15th, 2020. Staff further recommends that the governing body approve the 12 zoning waivers, WAI number 20-06A-L, as originally proposed and identified on the waiver list, revised on October 15th, 2020. For the public facilities manual waivers, staff recommends that the governing body approve PFW number 20-06A-G as revised on October 15th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
Are we gonna do them separately? Are we gonna do like each chunk? Like,
I think we're gonna,
do we need to do waivers, like this section of waivers, then the other section of waivers, and then?
I know we've done that in the past, but I think the staff recommends you do it together. All 12 together. Is that right?
So at the planning commission, they read out all the waivers. It's part of the record now.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed the change that's been recommended, that is to the public facility manager waivers A and B. So I think that you can go ahead and vote on, probably want to vote on the rezoning first, then the zoning waivers second, and then the public facility manager waivers third.
Okay.
Although you could do them all at once if you wanted to, since it's been discussed and there's no questions of what's being voted on at this point.
Yeah, I think I'll just do them all at once. Is that okay?
Yep, that works.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to do a roll call vote, and I'll begin.
We need a motion first.
Oh, we get a motion first. Do I have a motion for the
So moved.
staff?
Second.
All right. All right, I'll do a roll call vote, beginning of those participating remotely, please tell me if you're voting yay or nay or abstain. Beginning of Councilmember Machado,
Yay.
Councilmember Sendejas,
Yay.
Councilmember Javed,
Yay.
Councilmember Shoemaker,
Yay.
Councilmember Mincing,
Yay.
all right, and Vice Mayor Banks, no. All right, so the yeas have it. Yep, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, so we're on the new business. Item, I'll let them clear out first. All right. On the new business, item 9A, grants grid and Merchant McIntyre extension.
All right, good evening, Vice Mayor and members of the City Council. Joining us tonight, I believe we have members of Merchant McIntyre. Julie, are you present?
Yes.
All right, who else from your team is joining? Maybe you can announce yourselves.
Yeah, so this is Julia Angelotti speaking. I'm joined by Mark McIntyre, co-founder of the firm, as well as my colleagues Will Hoeing and Alicia Cannon. Good evening.
Great, thank you all for joining us. And just as a reminder, as the memo states, post approval of downtown development, we really want to pursue all possible avenues for reducing our expenditures associated with the transaction, the capital components. So we looked at different firms for grant support, and overall we wanted to help reduce our capital and operational liabilities by pursuing grants. It's been something that we've talked about for many years, about always asking the question, well, are there grants for something like that to help us reduce the price tag or to allow us to do something that we're not currently doing? So what was approved back in July was essentially a 90-day trial with Merchant McIntyre, where they would come back with a grants grid recommendation for what the different grant opportunities were. It was a long process where they engaged with every single department and all their representatives to really get a good understanding of what the operational requirements are, what the funding priorities are, and also with the downtown, what it was entailed with the downtown. They took that information, they engaged with their contact with the federal government, and they then came back with the recommended grants grid that is part of the packet. We uploaded an additional version on the website, the city website today, that had an extra column per request of the mayor, just talking about some of the requirements if you accept the grants. Most of them are just standard obligations that are typical of most grants in terms of financial reporting, right, and compliance with what the funding is about. There is, as we've seen in our past history as well, you'll see with the Parks and Rec one, usually when you take those land grants, it ties those lands for preservation, for green spaces, for recreation use. So I'll kind of go over that, but that is available as additional information. They provide some links as well directly to the grant site so you can read additional requirements. But before we end up ever accepting any grant, we want to do a thorough review of all of those requirements as well to make sure that you all are fully informed before voting to accept any of these grants. What I want to do tonight is just go over from a program standpoint what the opportunities are for the city in terms of funding potentials via grants over the next few years. Then I'll turn it over to Merchant McIntyre to see if they want to add any additional comments, and then open it up to any questions that you all may have. So to start with, I wanted to start with the priority for economic development, since that was what really got us towards this. Unfortunately, we don't qualify for grants from the Economic Development Administration. It's something we would have to apply for, and that's something that Merchant McIntyre said that they could help us with the process. But that's where some of the grants that could have really helped the downtown were. We just don't qualify for them because we never went through the robust kind of application process. It's not a guarantee. It'll take a lot of steps
to get there, but we likely will not be able to use that for our downtown. But that doesn't mean there's nothing else. You'll see in the transportation section, there's still at least transportation funding options that we could apply for the downtown as well. But for direct business support, and I mentioned this to you all via email as well, as I'm engaging with multiple grocers, and I know the residents this past Sunday at the forum, some of them were talking about the need for grocers. That is something we're working on. We're actually engaging with 3 grocers right now for across the street, and as part of that, I'd like to be able to pursue grants to help them with kind of that upfront costs that are associated with those kinds of investments. This is one that we were able to identify that we could pursue that has essentially its food access to the community. And you can see I bolded kind of what's authorized as a renovation of a building, right, across the street, right, that internal renovation that would be needed to be able to secure a grocer. Again, all these grants that I'm presenting, it's not guaranteed that we can get this. All we're presenting tonight is what we would like to pursue. The grants grid laid out multiple grants. This presentation is my recommendation for which ones we would actually pursue as a city and when. You'll see at the end that there's some priority future grants as well, but this is one that I'd really like to pursue with our Department of Social Services taking the lead. You'll see another grant down the road, which is also a direct DSS grant. There's the local food bank provided a pretty good analysis post-COVID-19 on food insecurity issues throughout our region and our city as well that are going to last even beyond COVID. These are pre-COVID analyses as well. That's what these types of grants help to try to help address. And we clearly, with our SNAP recipients, they have to leave our city, right, for the majority of their requirements, right? So that's why we would be able to pursue this. And you'll see later another grant as well that is additional direct benefits to our SNAP recipients. Okay, next is transportation grants. This is the largest dollar value available funding from the federal government right now. And you can see the different ones that I list from the grant grids as good opportunities. The BUILD grant is the largest single grant available for transportation projects. So again, we would like to be able to pursue these grants for our downtown road infrastructure, for other road projects, all of our culvert replacement projects, to be able to move on those a lot quicker. And then it even allows for purchase of certain buses and vans as well that our Parks and Rec and DSS departments utilize for transportation of the elderly, disabled, and children as well. So that there are programs out there that we could apply for. Stormwater and environmental grants, these were big ones, and some of those EDA grants, the economic development ones, actually allowed us to, would also enable us to use funding for stream restoration. But here's some other direct ones from the EPA that we could apply for our stream and culvert restoration and repair projects, which are the Russia Brand Stream project is again the single biggest driver of our stormwater fee and our long-term liability. So we want to pursue all possible avenues, including grants and public-private partnerships, to reduce that price tag significantly on our residents, so we can control that fee from having to rise or even be able to reduce it. We can also use these grants for industrial center infrastructure renovations. So evaluating the Connor Center, there's a lot of infrastructure requirements there that Calvin and his department have identified that really need repair. So this is something that we can do, along with stormwater and general environmental education to the public as well. $600,000 available funding. That's been my feedback here, so please mute your mics. Thank you. Okay. In terms of library, education, and arts grants, this is one that we could actually attempt to pursue for our new library for certain renovation, or as part of the construction of City Hall. That will benefit the library itself, right? That's something we can apply for. There's not a lot of funding grant opportunities for City Hall buildings, but there are opportunities for libraries. There is not a grant, but in my previous locality, I looked at a USDA loan. It's a 40-year, pretty much no interest loan for town halls, but that's something different. We wouldn't necessarily qualify for that. But this is something we could utilize for, at least for the library portion. So this is something I'm recommending we pursue. There's a lot of public safety grants. This is probably one of the best components of the grant opportunities. A lot of grants to help us with hiring of police and firefighters, to help with our short staffing funded by the federal government, and equally important, the equipment and the vehicles and all these other large-scale capital liabilities that we have, that if we can get grant funded, then that helps us with pay raises and hiring for additional staff for our public safety employees as well. So there's a lot of, you can see the $6.65 million in opportunities for police and fire. Again, I'm thinking about the ladder truck as well, and how we're going to be able to acquire that without impacting taxpayers. It's going to be via grant opportunities. There were so many public safety grants that couldn't fit in one slide, so I'll split into the second grant component.
Should I turn the volume down on the phone? Put it down, put volume down. Should I turn it down?
Right click on his picture. Okay, got it. All right, thank you. So again, I split into two slides. This one has more of a focus on really a partnership between our school system and our police. When we hear from our schools about infrastructure improvements to the high school for security, that's what this kind of grant would enable us to do, so that it could be grant funded, supported, instead of all coming down on the city to fund, but also other assistance such as mental health training and prevention programs to prevent school violence as well, not just active shooters, but all kind of general school violence as well. The other benefit of some of these programs, so we've always talked about mental health support. When we had that horrible incident about a year ago, where the question was directly asked, well, what are we doing for mental health support for our police firefighters? And let's not forget our DSS employees who also respond to those incidents as well. Right now, we don't have a program for that, and we've been engaging with the county, at least for a public safety component, to try to get some wellness programs established between the three localities. That hasn't borne much fruit, but there's a potential here for the ability to get a grant to be able to have that counseling services for our employees as well. Okay, Parks and Rec grants. Again, this is the grant that I talked about earlier, that when you accept these grants, they usually have those requirements where it has to remain for that recreational usage. Again, we would want to target these for the main priority would be for renovation of our trail networks, both at Signal Hill Park and Blooms Park. Those are both heavily used parks, very popular trails, and we want to make sure that they're well maintained for all residents, including those who require ADA compliance as well. And we can also pursue some of these, potentially for some of the wayfinding signage that we talked about. I'm going to talk about the manager report for a branding effort in downtown signage, and then other facilities related to Parks and Rec as well. But before we pursue any of these grants, you'll need to be certain that we want to keep these as parks, right? That's a decision that's going to have to be made at that point. We talked about DSS grants. I added the word health grants in there because you can see there are some health grant opportunities there. None of them right now kind of jumped out, but I do envision, and Merchant McIntyre will concur, that post-COVID-19, there's going to likely be an increase in federal grant opportunities related to health support, pandemic preparation, other things as well. So we want to keep our eye on that, but right now the main target would be for DSS for additional benefits for our SNAP recipients in the city. And that's what this would be. It's essentially an added benefit on top of what they're getting. Future targets, the reason why I call these future targets post downtown, we need to create kind of the staffing infrastructure. These are really newer programs that right now we wouldn't have the bandwidth to really manage. We don't have kind of program leads for these specifically. So before we take on new initiatives, we want to make sure that we're properly staffing all of our existing requirements and priorities, and really targeting those grants that are going to benefit our current plan. These are all great programs that would really help our community out tremendously, but we just don't have the capacity to support them. But it's something I think we need to keep our eye on for the future. You can see the description of what's available out there in terms of environmental education. This is a big one: career development and mentorship for our youth, for our high school students. some of the programs will kind of follow them along, give them that support through high school and into college as well, to really encourage kind of that next step. So that's a really good program as well. Opiate addiction support, healthcare support again, general family support, a lot of family-oriented programming to help families kind of stay together. That's always an issue that our DSS is dealing with for children. And then criminal justice and physical and mental health support to our community as well. So again, these grants would have great benefit for our community, our school system, our city. There's a STEM program as well that in the future we could try to partner with our library to pursue. So there's a lot of cool other opportunities, but these just aren't things that right now we could support. But I wanted to present them to you all as future targets and let you know what the dollar amounts are for those. And then again, we talked about the Economic Development Administration, how we don't necessarily qualify for those grants right now, but it's something that in the future we can try to pursue in terms at least of being accepted so that we can apply for these grants. But that would likely be a multi-year complex process because we likely have to bring on some other jurisdiction partners with us as well for that. So that is all I have, and I will turn it over to Merchant McIntyre if you have any additional comments.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Juliet. Laszlo, that was an excellent overview, and we know that the governing body has a long agenda. I simply want to emphasize very briefly, of course, that the objective is for Merchant McIntyre to deliver to you and the citizens of Manassas Park a good to great to awesome return on investment. And we're highly confident of being able to do that. We're highly confident of accomplishing that mission because of the federal grants grid that we've prepared that has nearly $50 million of potential funding opportunities. So we've got a lot of grants to pray over. And I simply want to say, Laszlo, and then Julie, if you want to add to it or we can take questions, we will only pursue grants that advance the mission of the city. I think that's what Laszlo was trying to convey. We never chase money. And lastly, your professional staff, especially Laszlo, especially Keith, went through a very thorough and deliberative process, and they deserve a lot of credit. So I simply wanted to share that, Laszlo, in response to what you shared.
Thanks, Mark. I just have one quick point to elaborate on. Many of you will notice that much of what is included on our federal grants grid are forecasted opportunities, where we take a very educated guess based on our analysis of congressional appropriations, congressional funding, and discussions with federal agency staff on when the grant is going to be posted or when the grant might be due. So we at Merchant McIntyre, we know and recognize federal grants are not your job, it's our job, which is why we get ahead of the solicitation well in advance before it's even released. So I just wanted to quickly reiterate that point as well.
Okay.
That's all we have.
These are excellent opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
For those participating remotely, Council Member Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
Hi, this is Miriam Machado. Yes, I have a question about when the city will be able to receive or to apply for any grant for economic development. What do we need to have? When are we going to be situated to be able to apply for those?
Yeah, so it's two-parter, and then I'll turn over to Merch back there to see if they have anything to add. But we can apply for grants right now that will have benefit for our economic development. They're just not coming from the Economic Development Administration. So, top ones are going to be transportation. We have a lot of transportation infrastructure that's part of the downtown initiative. So that's really going to be something that we'll be able to leverage. But in terms of the Economic Development Administration grant opportunities, again, I think I'll have to defer to Julia, but my understanding is it's going to be a lengthy process to be able to get approval and will require potentially some other jurisdictions joining us in being able to be eligible for those kinds of grants. So that might be a few years off.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, thank you, Laszlo. Right now, the city is not eligible for EDA-specific grants because the city is not in what the EDA calls an economic development district or an EDD. So the first process in becoming, or the first step, I should say, in becoming eligible for EDA grants is to request a designation as an EDD. So one of the things that we've talked with Laszlo about is connecting the city and facilitating a discussion with Lauren, who is the Virginia Economic Development Representative, the EDR, on kind of what those next steps look like for the city and possibly other jurisdictions that be, requesting or being designated as an EDD.
Okay.
And then Miriam, just to add, many of these grants will, assuming you approve tonight the extension of the contract, the next step is really we'll lay out the roadmap for the timeline for each grant and which ones we want to prioritize. But some of these grants we'll have to essentially start working on now to be ready to apply for in 2021.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Sendejas, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question about the grants. How competitive are these grants? And do we see other suburban jurisdictions around the country that have been able to win these grants?
Yes. Merchant McIntyre has been in existence since 1994, and we represent many local governments around the country. Or I should say, since 1994, we've represented many local governments like Manassas Park around the country, and we've succeeded in delivering a really good return on investment based on the grant support.
Can you all speak to the competitiveness of some of these grants?
They're highly competitive, which is why local governments like you all retain an agency with federal grants expertise. All of us in our agency are former congressional staff, administration staff, and federal program officers. And so we're highly fluent in the federal grants process, which, as you know, is both complicated and time consuming. And so if we continue on behalf of the city, our job is to serve as your federal grant staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julia.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, part of the resource inventory process in putting together the grid was not only identifying programs that are aligned with your priorities, but also listing those programs from the resource inventory process. So we've identified projects that came up during that time that would be, or we think can be, competitive for these different grant programs themselves. So that is part of our job is while we have the framework and initial project design ideas from you all, part of our work is to make those applications competitive.
Okay. All right. Is that it, Councilmember Sendejas?
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right. Councilmember Javed, do you have any comments or questions?
Hey, good evening. I just have a question. When we apply or search for these grants, is there a cost associated to the city just for searching it or applying for these grants?
No, we work on a monthly retainer basis, identifying the grants, writing the grants, submitting the grants, winning the grants, mobilizing congressional support, and complying with the grants is all part of our monthly retainer. There's no additional charge for those services.
Yeah, and one additional point there as well. There's no initial fee to apply necessarily. Many of these grants do require cost sharing or match components, and those depend upon the grant program. And one of that's actually something that we would talk about together with you and Laszlo about if that match requirement or those cost sharing requirements are worth it to you all to move forward before we even start beginning to write that grant application.
I see, thank you. So you would know before we write it that there will be a cost associated with it?
Always, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that was the only concern, but yeah, I mean, some of these grants will be very beneficial for the city. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I just, I was very impressed by the I guess, the totality of the presentation that you gave us. So I was a skeptic before, but I'm willing to do this and see if we get just a fraction of what's on the list, that would pay for itself. I mean, and we'd be ahead. I mean, if it's $58,000, $500 for a year. I mean, if we got one or two even decent sized ones, we would be well ahead of where we were and would jumpstart different programs we have in the city that, that we've had to hold off on because we don't have the money for, or new things that we might only have to pay 20% or 30% or something like that, to be able to do. So I'm looking forward to us being successful together. Is there a minimum number of, how to phrase this, like, is there a minimum number of grants that to be applied for? For instance, I mean, we could pay the money and not apply for any grants. Like, is there some kind of?
It's really driven by staff. So we're essentially we're gonna have to agree with them on the timeline. So what we're applying for when, but each department is gonna have to have a rep who's taking the lead on working with Merchant McIntyre for. That's why I try to break it down this way to kind of signal who's working on what, to try to secure those grants. But we're essentially, they're providing what the options are, and then we're working together to figure out a timeline. But just to let you know, they were on a faster timeline than I was in terms of, hey, we need to apply for this now. Let's do it. It's like, yeah, we need to hold off. Let's come up with a game plan. But I agree with them. I certainly want to be aggressive, but we're going to be targeting and applying for many grants this next year. And the good thing about this as well is it's a great learning exercise to see how much support is really out there and how much are we on our own for, right? We need to answer that question because, again, the questions will always come up, why don't you pursue a grant? Well, why don't you pursue a grant? Let's answer that question. How much grant support is there really out there for us? That's the other benefit of this program.
Do they offer a service? I mean, I guess we've not as much, but because we know about them more, but like with the state, are there any opportunities we're not currently taking advantage of through the state?
Mark or Julian?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the comment or the question.
Yeah, I guess any additional support that could be provided from you all in terms of awareness of state opportunities in terms of grants.
Well, our focus is on federal dollars because we like to say that we fish where the fish are, right? And the federal government this year will spend $4.8 trillion of our taxpayer money, not to mention the $2.2 trillion CARES Act. And of course, the Congress and the administration is negotiating with each other about yet another economic stimulus and emergency aid package. And I apologize, Will, if you were going to say that. I apologize if I interrupted you, but on a case-by-case basis, we absolutely will help with state grants as well. Will, did you want to add to that?
You captured almost exactly what I was going to say, with just one quick addition. There are at least two grants that we've been discussing with Laszlo and the team that are state grants as well, one for recreational trails and one that relates to school resource officers.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mincing?
Councilmember Javed asked my question. I just want to say, I think that down the road, we're going to be thankful that we did this.
Yeah. I agree. And related to Councilmember Shoemaker's comment, I think this is a wise investment that'll pay off Just excellent opportunities for the city. All right. So staff recommends that the governing body authorize the city manager to renew the attached agreement with Merchant McIntyre for grants program management services to the city through October 30th, 2021, subject to final city attorney review.
So
Do we have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you all.
It's a little delayed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is item 9B, ESRI and Blue Raster.
Vice Mayor Frank, can I just say one thing before we go on to the next agenda?
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to, Donald, if you can just speak up a little bit, it was kind of hard to hear you, your comments, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The scream.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Funny is no one ever says they can't hear me.
Thanks.
Because I don't mind. Sure. Sorry.
Love you. I love you, Alana.
I love you too.
So I just wanted to do a quick check. I see my blue raster contacts are on the call. Is the Esri contact Daniel, are you able to join? Okay. All right. PD Vice Mayor, members of everybody.
Hey, Chris.
Here to present at the same brief, two separate services that will be on two separate agreements, but I figured it would just make sense because they're part of the exact same project. To kind of give an overview of what it is our kind of like our GIS enterprise platform that we have for the city. So there we go. Yep. So to kind of show you where we're at, and this is going to kind of parrot some of the, just kind of where we are with a lot of our kind of our systems that we have in place right now. Essentially is our current product. It's called Think GIS. It's a product developed by a company called WTH. If you can think of them as like a boutique firm, they're an engineering group. They got together and said, hey, we can make a GIS platform, and they're mostly based in the Midwest, and a lot of their clientele are in the Midwest. And their biggest product that they have came mostly from a public safety service perspective. So their value prop is we can cheaply integrate with your kind of core computer-aided dispatching system and provide that information for public safety, emergency management, those types of functions for the most part. That led, when the city was seeking out that service, police department kind of led the charge because they were looking for this type of product, and that's kind of essentially how we identified them originally. Well, with that, everyone else kind of starts seeing that value, and then other departments ask for that same level of, hey, maybe we can expand our GIS footprint and start getting some of this. And what ended up happening was we essentially stretched them from what they were really solid at providing into what they were not necessarily solid at providing. When you think of not just the back-end support, those integrations, does it connect with our ERP? Does it connect with a lot of these kind of software applications? Are we collecting this data and being able to build like elevated decision-making tools, like dashboards? Can we put this on the front side and show citizens kind of that transparency initiative? That was what I was set out to do originally when I got here last summer, was just kind of, who is this company? What are they capable of? Start doing an assessment. And does this service make the most sense long-term for the city? It also helped having client first involved with that assessment as well, just to kind of get a second set of eyes. And kind of the agreement was essentially, if we're looking to kind of have a more citywide enterprise function with a very portable tool at our disposal to kind of connect into not our current systems, but our future systems, WTH just came up lacking. So, okay, so what do we do? How do we go from point A, where we are now, to point B, and where is point B, and what does that look like? So that was my task, was essentially to find a GIS platform that would replace what we currently have, but for the same price. or offset any kind of upfront implementation costs as much as humanly possible. So that was a very long ongoing task for about the last 8 months, but this is kind of where we led you right now, and I'll go into the Esri Blue Asper piece, but I'll start first with just kind of, looking at the WTH tool overall. If you can think of the system, it's kind of more like a legacy Windows 98 kind of interface on the back end. It's not necessarily that front-facing tool that you would want to provide out for services. When you can see, we've all been in like the era of COVID right now. Everyone's gone on board and saying like all the dashboards, all of those kind of, most citizens see kind of like a Esri dashboard with somewhat of like a Tableau type interface, just a lot of modern transparency tools that are out there. WTH, while functional, is not necessarily what you would consider a modern tool. And also just kind of wanted to give the roll down of the kind of the cost summary. So about a year ago, we provided kind of like a breakdown from a line item perspective of all the different kind of services that entail a WTH platform. So you can see maybe when it was initial public safety aspect of it, it was a little more palatable, but as more and more departments began kind of tacking on and kind of expanding their service, it just kind of grew on us. So incrementally over the last 2 years, we've gone from what we thought was going to be a more affordable tool to a, hey, this thing is now looking like there are other services out there for the same price that can be a little bit better for the city. So that led me towards Esri, and if you can think of Esri, if you've never heard of them, ESRI, Esri, however you want to say it, they are basically what you would consider to be the kind of Amazon wholesale provider of our GIS or just kind of GIS systems online. They're the most powerful. They're the most commonly utilized by not just local governments, but private sector businesses. They're just the leading standard of what the most modern GIS platform is out there. So when you think of them, the first assessment is something we can even consider affording. What type of level of service can we get from Esri based off of kind of what we would need it for. The kind of replacement package that we had was essentially answered by the fact that because they are such a large wholesale provider, they have so many different packages that they can offer across all sectors that they actually had something that they provided specifically for small governments. So it's a scalable tool. That was really interesting to know because within that package that they offer to small governments, and I believe it's in your briefing package, it's actually on the Esri breakdown. They're the one that provides the most amount of room to grow as a city over time forward in front of us, and they don't get restricted by what we have to have with WTH from a licensing perspective. So if we want to have more users, we would have to incrementally pay more as a city to have more users, to have the types of access. So not just people who are viewing, but the people who have the ability to create new kind of interfaces or have editing capabilities or whatever that would look like. We would have to have more capabilities there. Whenever we wanted them to build something more for us or integrate with a new software tool that we would have to grow, we would have to develop that within WTH and then pay for as well because their model is based off of, they'll do the upfront development and then they'll leave that as a remain behind service cost in their service structure. So the WTH bill, every time you add to it, it stays with you because they charge, I think it's about 18% of that development cost is kind of leave behind cost. So they leave breadcrumbs. So it's ever expanding, I guess is the best way to put it. So when you look at Esri, and I think we'll have the cost breakdown here, I can't remember if it's at the very end, we can look at it, but essentially is they provide that whole package of everything you could possibly need from what our city needs in one lump payment that's going to be the same, and from our understanding, a very predictable year-over-year service charge that's and you'll see on the last page, roughly the same that we're paying today. The difference is minimal. So then the question becomes, okay, the service is roughly the same, like cost-wise. The level of service we're getting from Esri is exponentially more. How do we build it? How do we install it? And that's where the challenge came in because before CARES Act funding, I didn't see this as a viable option for the city to be able to onboard without a multi-year capital replacement that we would just concentrate on police first 1 year, next year we would do this, next year we would do this. That's mostly because of the cost for the development hours it takes to get somebody in here to actually implement the system. So after a pretty comprehensive search, and thankfully, the kind of GSA service rates for transparency measures, everybody has to provide obviously what they charge per hour, and both Esri and, for this instance, Blue Raster are both on there. You can see the value prop because you're paying for the person that's going to do the development, not necessarily what they're developing. They provide the development as a level of effort. They say that's going to take X amount of hours. This is the type of person on that job. This is what they're going to charge for you to complete that entire level of effort, if that makes sense. The other benefit for Blue Raster is they're entirely local. They not only work as a Virginia-based company, but they work a lot with local governments in Virginia. I believe they have some projects right now they're actually doing for the city of Manassas, building out some other projects for them. They're very familiar with their area. They're familiar with local government challenges and solving those types of problems. Because when you get a level of effort, that's like getting an estimate on a project on a house. Until you actually go in and like knock down the walls a little bit and see kind of what's on the inside, having that familiarity of the types of challenges they've seen, particularly with local governments, is an added benefit. So the cost comparison here was standard is what Esri charges for implementation. You can see where the value of a Blue Raster managed implementation comes in. And that's their value prop, is we can basically charge these types of rates because we know that Esri charges X amount of rates, and that's kind of how they have their model built off of. So all in combined is how we were able to activate this with CARES Act funding. So we already had it in our plan this year to have some level of capital replacement looking at our GIS platform. So it really became, if we were going to do it all, what could we utilize CARES Act funding for to offset that implementation fee? Because you have to think about is, while we're doing this, we have to still have WTH as a service until we get the new service in place. And that's mostly because our biggest user, public safety, they're the ones that are using it kind of constantly from a day-to-day standpoint. So we don't want to diminish their capabilities at all. Hopefully it's just like a light switch, when everyone's ready to go, we just transition to the next platform. So you have to offset having kind of two GIS services at the same time until you phase one out and then you have a new one. So that means we had to kind of offset that. So what Esri was able to agree on was a ramp-up schedule. Their understanding was, hey, first year, you're going to be so overwhelmed with just kind of getting up and running that you're probably not going to be using the entire scope of our services. So we're going to kind of wean you into the system by charging you year one, roughly 1/3 of the total cost for a small government, year two, 2/3, year three, the full price. So it can make sense. So what that totally looks like, that's roughly $9,300 for year one, $18,000 for year two, and then $27,000. And that would be the expected cost going forward after year two, that year three cost into perpetuity. Looking at the actual Blue Raster charge, they gave us a pretty comprehensive scope breakdown. And basically they broke it into phases. And they said phase one would be just kind of data migration, discovery, essentially anything that we need to ingest into their GIS or build it into our GIS system. That's kind of phase one. That's entirely CARES Act. The rest of the phases, which is kind of those departmental specific functions, we would be paying kind of half now with CARES Act, half for what we already budgeted in the CIP. So total overall, we're still utilizing the full, optimized budget for CARES Act funding over these next few months. And then we're offsetting that with CIP budgeting funding that we've already had in place. So when you look at it total overall, a lot of that kind of replacement cost is offset, which helps out a lot from just kind of an implementation perspective.
And just want to add a clarifying point for CARES Act money. We're using the CARES Act money only for the benefit of the time that CARES Act money is authorized, so through December 30th. That's why you'll see costs that the city will have to pay for because the benefit of that service. So year one of Esri, there's months that are going to be post CARES Act, which is why we only got to use a little bit of CARES Act money for Esri. Blue Raster, there's a lot of kind of that upfront implementation. That's what makes CARES Act made this project feasible because it was able to help us fund most of that upfront stuff that's happening right now.
So I'll leave it from there for questions, but just kind of what my overall assessment was when you do the comparison side by side between just the power of the tool, there is no comparison. It is a complete upgrade in all facets of it. The real thing is just going to be now the city standing alone with this Esri tool. What does that look like as our ability to kind of work on our own system, provide this kind of troubleshooting and that kind of management level, working back and forth with Esri when we're working with them. So I'll leave it open to questions for now.
Excellent. For those remotely, Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I do. How long is the current GIS service used in the city?
How long has it been? I think it was late
Yes, the current
2017.
GIS service, yeah.
The current service was brought into the city, I think it started in late 2017, early 2018. Is that about right? Okay.
Do we have any pending payments for them?
I believe we have our breakdown from our invoices. We kind of split it up into about 2 to 3 payments spread out over the course of the FY, of which the major portions of it, which is that data service, I think it's about the roughly $9,500 charge. That's all paid in July, so it's already been paid for the fiscal year. And then the last one's due about mid-year, sometime in January, February. That's the one that we would still have pending in this case.
Okay, and my second question is, will this new GIS service that works for the core services, will this be integrated somehow to the new website?
Yes, that's the goal was essentially to find the right technology that would, I guess, increase engagement for all of our different departmental services. So not only would it just be here it's just like an open portal of information, but if staff wants to develop their own kind of line department reports, we would have internal and external kind of facing reports for services, and it would just be a more powerful tool to be able to have those transparency initiatives met, and that's kind of one of the goals of the city, as I always understood, was just we want to increase that level of, we're trying to report our performance on a year-to-year basis by having departments control their data, control their systems. So this would integrate fully with new solutions. This would integrate fully with our website, even with our payment portal. A lot of it, there's just so much that can be onboarded by this because their capability is that much more.
And a user-friendly platform for anyone who's interested in looking up parcel information across the city. All the information related to that parcel as well. And then getting the analytics from that as well.
If you've ever been onto the city, I believe the city of Manassas has one where you can drill down on the parcel. It pulls up kind of their assessment-related information. We could actually weave in our Keystone billing history into the same type of module, and you would have this kind of comprehensive one view visually of essentially parcel-related data, which actually reduce the need to have those services right now for those modules, because right now we have 3 different areas, sources of information for parcel data. We would only need one. So that's another benefit.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Councilmember Javed, any comments or questions?
Yes, I'm trying to understand how the CARES Act money will be utilized to buy, the blue roster services. Is that
Yeah. So remember a couple weeks.
requirements for the CARES Act for COVID related? So how does COVID related
Yeah.
use those funds?
Remember a few weeks ago, we talked about how we need additional IT support because with COVID-19, what the CARES Act allows is for digitization of city government operations. But to implement all these software, you need additional support, right? So it's kind of building that it's part of the implementation cost. The purchase price of getting that asset is that additional implementation. So we wouldn't be taking on all of these software initiatives at the same time were it not for COVID-19 and the requirement to enable remote work, digitization through engagement with the community. So all of that technology and the implementation of that technology is why we're utilizing CARES Act, because it enables then residents to do more with our software, and it allows for internal city government digitization as well. But that requires that implementation piece, which is any expenditure, essentially with CARES Act, any expenditure that's driven because of COVID-19 related to supporting social distancing goals and remote work, that's all authorized. But that's why we can't use the time. It also has a time constraint, so we can't use it to fund ESRI for next half fiscal year 20, and then all future years. We can only pay for those months that we're getting right now that are going to be part of the CARES Act money timeframe. But again, implementation is most of it's upfront.
May I follow up? Are you saying, like, for instance, if a resident calls the Commissioner of Revenue's office and wants to know why a parcel is assessed at a certain amount, then even if they're remote working, somebody in the Commissioner of Revenue's office can go into this program and even from home, then answer questions over the phone for residents if the office is closed or we're trying to encourage social distancing, or is that what you're saying?
Correct, absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of this stuff wouldn't even be like desktop license based. It would be kind of software, so it would be URL based access for them, so they can log in from any.
So it's going to be like web-based, and I can go, like I'm an employee, I can go into the website and I'll have a username and a password kind of thing, or?
Yeah, so when you look at the actual scope breakdown of what Esri supplies us with, it's everything. So it's the desktop and the room and what you were just
and the remote.
The web-based platforms as well, which we would have to. WTH doesn't offer one part of that, and they make you pay incrementally more for the other.
Right.
And remember that this interfaces with Dude Solutions as well, which is a big initiative for us for the community development department to better engage with the community with public service requests for work, code enforcement requests, zoning, all that stuff. We're going to want to leverage Esri and Dude Solutions for it. So they really combine. It's just we were waiting for another grant to cover Esri. We moved forward quickly with Dude. We would have brought Esri at the same time, but we were hoping we were going to get this other grant to reduce the cost liability of the city further. We didn't get that grant.
It was a VM grant I applied for back in February, and they said wait till October, and then obviously didn't go through, which is why we went in this direction.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Councilmember Jabed, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I do. Is this going to be a cloud-based, or is it like hybrid? How would this be deployed, I guess?
Correct. It's a hosted service. So Esri essentially is kind of like, you think about everything on the back end, data is hosted through this service provided for us. So we'll have a cloud footprints in some warehouse somewhere. I'm not exactly sure of the areas, but yes, it would require something like that, which all of our new kind of directions we're going with our software would mean that we're going to be utilizing their cloud hosted solutions for the most part.
And you say that this was, I guess, pool friendly, I guess, for like field workers.
Because our current GIS
platform.
Are you asking, is it mobile friendly for our employees?
Yeah, is it mobile friendly? And then, I mean, how would I guess the security go around these mobile devices for these city workers? I mean, is there a security breach at all?
I mean, I would have to get the actual like data security specs back from Esri to provide that as a follow-up. But from my understanding and conversations, yes, it is a very protected environment that we would be hosting our data in.
And it is mobile friendly, so it is something that our employees will be able to leverage on their phones. That's a big priority especially for public works and for all the community development department. They do so many diverse array of activities to try to track all those activities and hours expended. We need a better system than them going out working all day, tired, coming back to the office after they did all that work, and then trying to put in the hours of what they did during the day for each activity. This would be hit a button, right? And you're essentially tracking those hours that you're working on that specific function, hit the next button for the next function. So it allows us to get better analytics.
If you want to think about it, even if we did not have like an Esri solution, let's say Dude Solutions, perfect case in point, they utilize Esri services just for their mapping type tools within their program. So all already uses an Esri interface. Without them, we wouldn't be able to retain and store that data in our own cloud-hosted solution. It would just be there. So what happens is when they actually transfer that data and we integrate Esri to Dude solutions, that data then falls back into what our cloud-hosted solution, of which we then have a developed map or a layer that retains that information that then gets put back as a public-facing transparency, like some layer out there that people can go in and see it, and that's the benefit. That's kind of that throughput from end to end. When you think of like what actually entails creating data into the system from whatever, maybe it's some citizen seeing to report an issue or a work order update for one of our crew workers, just however it goes in there, everything falls through to our GIS, which is what you ultimately want. You want your data working for you, so we want to capture all of it in our GIS as much as possible. And this is one of the better ways to do it.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Lippman, did you have a question? I saw you have to have a comment.
What, can you repeat that?
He saw someone, I think, from the Esri team who, because they can see everyone who's on.
Principals at Blue Raster. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Mike, we can hear you. Thank you.
Very good. Just wanted to follow up on that security question. I posted a link to the Esri ArcGIS security portal, which talks about all of the federal certifications it's used broadly throughout the federal government and has achieved very significant levels of federal security certifications and other IT certifications. I can answer any additional questions if we can be helpful.
Any additional questions, Councilmember Javed?
No, I mean, I was just worried, like, if these were gonna go on mobile devices, I mean, do these devices have to be password protected? I mean, if the police are using some of this information, I'm just worried about the security risk, but I guess we could look at that link that Blue Raster provides us and go from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
The only question I had was maybe to follow up is it protected from ransomware, given the sensitivity of it?
In what regard, I guess I would have to understand how you would be doing a ransomware attack to this, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that, I guess, is the best way to.
Okay. Because normally I think ransomware is they're asking you for something and you click the button or click the link and then you get stuck. So like we're always at risk of that, and that's why Don constantly has to do kind of the training and reminders. Don't click on links, and that's why we have kind of those. We try to do the best to screen out those junk emails, if you will. But that's always a risk, and we've seen that hit other jurisdictions pretty hard who accepted that, and you get locked in, and to unlock the system, you have to pay them a certain amount of money. So it's something it's really via education, and that's why we do a lot of the cyber threat analysis as well, where the independent groups came in and analyzed where our weaknesses are. So all that analysis is something that Don works on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I better ask just because we're putting a lot of sensitive information, in the cloud computing space in terms of the police department, in terms of, if we're doing, housing, we're going to have the whole map of the city on. People can go on and look at it. Just want to make sure we don't have any bad actors that can have access to that level of information.
It's always a risk, but most jurisdictions across the country already have these we're just behind, let's say. So I still think we're a smaller target. Doesn't mean people won't go after us. Sometimes they will because you are a small target, but it's just a risk of doing business right now. But again, we're behind everybody else. Everyone provides much better services to their residents, is farther technologically advanced than we are, because they made these investments years ago and we just haven't. Yeah,
right, absolutely. I have to ask just because, safety and security, cyber-wise, is the same as physically. But could you give a kind of a rundown of things that will purposely help our residents? I think you were talking about like assessment information, like kind of on the Commissioner of Revenue side, but could you kind of detail like what would be the benefits to our residents who can tap into the system? What will they be able to see, and what will they be able to look at?
I believe number one is just if you're talking about just like service delivery, especially when we're talking about community services. So number one, just reporting on, let's say, if you wanted to have information on, because essentially everything gets just reported in a map layer. So if you wanted to have a map layer that's all about, these are all of the outage, or let's say we're doing snow plowing. These are the streets that are currently covered in this type of snow. You can like map off a section in the city. You could do reporting numbers for amount of X spent per type of project for our capital projects for our streets. There's just a lot of different ways that you can combine information to provide a better view for what is the top of mind. So if the city is interested in it, if we're collecting that data, chances are we can build that map layer to show our citizens what they're interested in seeing, or what we're holding ourselves accountable from a service delivery standpoint. And then it would just be up to what is more internal reporting versus what is external. But you know, I don't want to say these are the specific types. There's so many, it's tough to really define. There's so many different ways that you can translate information. For us, I think definitely a lot of our code-related issues going on. We can provide that level of reporting in a transparent measure. A lot of our street work that we're doing out there for Calvin's department, just kind of reporting the level of effort that his department staff is doing to kind of continually improve our streets, working on our utility system. You name it. I mean, really.
Yeah, we want our.
What would you want to see, and then we can try to build it.
Yeah, we would want our residents, wherever they are, they see a problem, they take their phone, they take a picture, geolocates on the GIS, and tells us where the problem is. That's the future.
So it like pre-populates the fields where instead of having to put in the streets or the address.
Correct. It's already telling us where they were, where they took that picture, where they're taking a picture of.
Gotcha.
Right.
They could be able to confirm yes, and then all that information that's pre-populated will become part of the report to the staff. Like there's a pothole here, or there's a, I don't know, piece of sidewalk that needs repaired or something like
Look at this trash, boom. Yeah. Now, I think the concern is going to be digital or like information overload, right? That's always a risk where you're just now going to be encouraging a lot more complaints than perhaps we have the staffing capability to address. But that's a good thing. We need to know what the problems are. We need a better system than everyone emailing you all and the mayor, hey, we have this problem. We want to have the data on what the, we don't want to just hear it on social media. We want people to actually report it to us.
Okay. Right. Excellent. Any more questions? Or
No.
And also, if the information is shared to the public, can they edit that information?
No, that I'm sure of, yes. Essentially, it's delivered to the public in a read-only environment, so you would only be able to provide a templated version with non-input on their side. It's more just a reporting tool.
Councilmember Mensing, any?
Have you spoken to the city of Manassas about their experience with this group?
Yes. So far, I have yet to receive it's just these are the types of projects they're working on, and the level of service was commensurate with what you would want for an implementation standpoint. So.
Okay.
And in terms of Esri, every software company that we're looking for in terms of all the different initiatives that we want to do now and our roadmap 5 years from now, they all interface with Esri. I mean, that was an overwhelming response from a GIS. We work with Esri. We work with Esri. The majority of them do.
And Michael, if you're on, specifically with Manassas, I don't know if you have any other kind of use cases in the Northern Virginia area that you have off the top of your head right now that could show us if you wanted to look these up, that's kind of a product of our work, or I can provide that list at a later time.
Definitely. The City of Manassas is a great example, and then we work with a number of municipalities nationwide. Happy to provide details if helpful.
All right. And I have no questions or comments. So the staff has two recommendations. The staff recommends that the governing body authorize the city manager to enter into the 3-year ESRI Small Municipal and County Government Enterprise Agreement in regards to GIS services at a cost not to exceed $55,350, pending final review by the city attorney, and to use $1,558.33 in CARES Act funds to cover the relevant portion of FY21. The second recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with Blue Raster LLC in regards to the implementation of the ESRI Small Government enterprise platform at a cost not to exceed $79,999 pending final review by the city attorney, and to use $52,499.50 in CARES Act funds to cover the relevant implementation cost. Do we have a motion to approve these recommendations?
You want them both together, or you want to do one and one?
I think they're kind of they're together. Is that right?
You probably ought to do each one individually.
All right, let's do them individually.
I'll move the first motion with ESRI.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Oh. Let me get it.
Aye.
We'll wait. One more.
Hector.
They did it together.
Okay. All those opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Now for the second recommendation.
I'll move the agreement with Blue Raster.
So moved.
All
Second. Sorry.
It's getting late. All right. All those that approve, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Little comedy this evening at my expense. All right. Next is item 9C, CARES Act Motorola Solutions Radio Procurement.
Calvin or Alan, are you all on?
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council, staff, citizens, and guests. Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. The item before you is regarding replacement direct connect radios, two-way radios for the Public Works crew. Our radios that we had were somewhat dated, but they've since been repurposed to manage operations at City Hall, to provide social distancing capabilities there. We really need that ability to have one-click push-button communication, not only between the crew, but also with police and fire. These Motorola radios provide that. We can work directly through the emergency channel and emergency events. We can also communicate off of that channel directly with our crew. And again, they have the handheld mic that can clip to their shirt. So it's much less cumbersome when you're in a truck plowing, or when you're out on the field, to simply have that one-click communication. They are an expensive piece of equipment. 10 of them does amount to over $22,000, but they are an essential piece of equipment for emergency operations and emergency activities. The total quote from Motorola is $20,533.40. We're getting a bit of a discount by buying in bulk, and there's an additional discount for purchasing before December 4th. We are intending to use CARES Act funding to fund this because it is a social distancing measure. So that will come out of the CARES Act line item for social distancing communication. Is there any questions from the body about this purchase?
Hey, Calvin, I thought Alan said that the price had gone up to $25,000. Just to be safe, can you all provide me maybe a $25,500 not to exceed?
Okay, I'll adjust the recommendation.
Yeah, just
Would still be coming
Is that because the
it'd be still covered CARES Act.
Excluded from this quote, the actual handheld mic?
I don't remember. I know Alan will continue to work on the final pricing over the last 3 days or so, and he got an updated number. So I think if we just had the not to exceed bumped up, you see, this was under the 25,000, but it was actually a good thing that we put this on the agenda because the price ended up going above that 25,000. It may not. It may still be at the discounted rate, but if I can have that not to exceed authority, then we can go out and procure it.
Okay.
Well, didn't we give you the authority to do additional change order requests, even with? Didn't we do that?
Yeah, I think technically I would have the order, but I'd rather be more transparent and just right now and just get the full amount of what we think we need, like what we won't exceed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have it, yeah.
Trevor.
Yeah. What is it? You can just read it out.
I have $27,097.60 with an additional $2,358.74. That's for the handheld microphones and chargers.
Wait, but the total is 27,000, not 27 plus 2,000.
Total would be 29. Say 29,500.
Okay. But the answer is yes, we would use CARES Act money for this.
So it's going to be not to exceed 29,500.
Give the numbers again. I'm sorry, sir. This jumped my heart. I was going to say I'll add them up. You say it was 27.
$27,097.60.
Okay.
The additional $2,358.74.
Plus 2,358 and 74 cents. Nope. Let me do it again. 97 and 60 cents plus. I hit the wrong number. Plus 2,358. I see 29,456 and 34 cents. Does that sound right?
All right, so that's not to exceed that amount.
Yeah.
Okay. For those participating remotely, Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I just have a comment that this is very self-explanatory. I'm glad that we are going to be able to improve the communication. We don't know how long this pandemic is going to last, so I'm glad that we can use the CARES Act funding money to purchase these radios.
And Councilmember Sendejas, do you have any comments or questions?
No questions, no comments.
Okay. Councilmember Javed, any comments or questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you for your math. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I just wanted to say I'm glad we can provide our employees what they need to get through this pandemic, because especially if we have another wave come, then we'll be ready to go. I'm glad for that.
Councilmember Mensing?
Nope.
All right, and I have none. Staff recommends that the governing body authorize the city manager to purchase 10 APX 1007/800 megahertz model 1.5 portable radios from Motorola Solutions with charging stations for a total not to exceed $29,456.30. 34 cents.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? One more. There's two more.
You can't do it fast.
All those opposed? Abstain. There's one abstention. That's myself.
Okay.
And the motion passes. All right. Next is item 9D, vibratory roller.
That's still Calvin.
Good evening again, this is Bill Calvin O'Dell, Director of Community Development. The item before you is something out of the CIP. It's an equipment purchase for Public Works. This is for a new vibratory roller. We're working with an aged piece of equipment that's no longer reliable. So we had put in our CIP under our equipment list for a new vibratory roller. We got a quote from James River for $43,570. We pursued other quotes for the piece of equipment. This was the lowest quote we received. This expenditure gets split up between the various, the general fund, the stormwater enterprise fund, and the water sewer enterprise fund, because this piece of equipment is used not only in street repairs, but in repairs that are associated with water breaks, sewage and sanitary and water distribution repairs, as well as stormwater repairs. So this piece of equipment gets split amongst three different funds. The numbers are there before you, so it's coming out of three different general ledger line items. Are there any questions about this purchase?
Begin if those participating remotely. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
All right. And Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah, I just was going to point out, and I know we corrected it, but for the public, the budget line items are correct. The amount is the amount. Which one was this? The one that had we did the correction online? Was it this one?
No, it was, I believe it was the next.
I'm sorry.
The next item
I
had the
apologize.
wrong attachment. Yeah.
I apologize. I skipped ahead. Sorry. I think this is great, and I'm glad we can get it.
Wow. All right. Councilmember Mensing?
No.
Okay, have none. So staff recommends that the governing body authorize the city manager to purchase a Sakai SW354 roller, double drum from James River Equipment of Manassas Park for an amount not to exceed $43,570.
So moved.
Second.
All those that approve, please say aye.
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 I waited. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Next is item 9E, water service truck.
Okay, again, this is Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. This is another purchase from the CIP. This was one of the few vehicles that Enterprise could not offer. This is an Altech body special construction vehicle that has a crane for lowering pipe sections and valves in the case of water and sewer repairs. So it has a crane body on the back of an F550 Super Duty truck. We went out and sought out ways to acquire the vehicle. We found that there was an actual, we received a bid from Altech themselves through Sourcewell, where they had Sourcewell as a procurement site that offers cooperative procurement to two jurisdictions, municipalities. So we found this vehicle already meeting the procurement requirements. The total amount of the purchase is $128,068. This is all coming out of the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund because this is really a water repair vehicle. The only time it wouldn't be used on water line replacement, water valve replacement, or brakes would be as if we were doing sewer work, which is also the same fund. So this is not split up amongst the various funds. So the ask is to allow the city manager to purchase this Altech crane body truck through the Sourcewell procurement contract in the amount of $128,068.
Okay.
And this is where the attachment was incorrect for the large packet, but we posted the correct version online.
Got it. So for those remotely, Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
No question.
Councilmember Sendejas, any comments or questions?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No questions. Thanks.
Councilmember Shoemaker, any comments or questions?
No. Well, my only question was: are we going to surplus the old vehicle, or is it beyond where we can even sell it?
Yeah, we're actually replacing two vehicles in the fleet with this one vehicle. We're currently operating a retired ambulance as our water brake vehicle, but we're going to retire vehicle number PW131 and vehicle PW153, which will both be put up for surplus sale.
Are they safe for surplus sale? Given the rust, that's the only question.
Yeah, we usually declare things surplus and we put them out to bid because someone might still want to buy it, unless we deem it as just irredeemable. But we usually post it, so we'll have to come back and get your all's permission to put it on public surplus. We'll put it out there for a bid for a period of time. No one bids on it, then we just dispose of it. But you'll be surprised at what people bid to purchase of it.
Okay. Is that it? Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
None from me. So staff recommends that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contract documents for the purchase of the crane service body, steel with auto crane HC-6 mounted on a Ford F-550 Super Duty chassis, along with accessories and their installation from Alltech Industries Incorporated, for a total not to exceed $128,068 as presented, subject to the final city attorney review.
So moved.
Second.
All those approved say aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is item 9E, water service truck.
No, it's 9F right now.
Oh, 9F?
We just did the water service.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to do it again. I didn't make any
It's so much
mistakes.
fun, we're going to do it again.
I'm gonna buy 2 of them.
If we get out before 11, Preston might be, might be disappointed.
All right. Next is item 9F, Fire Department and EMS CARES Act EMS procurement.
That'd be Chief Soper.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Banks and member of the governing body. Tonight I got a proposal to buy advanced life support equipment along with some miscellaneous EMS equipment to be purchased off the CARES Act funding. Just some background to this purchase. The fire department provides advanced life support services to the residents, business owners, patrons, city employees of surrounding jurisdictions. In providing these life-saving medical procedures, our EMS providers use several different types of equipment when performing these skills. The fire rescue department has a critical need in adding new EMS equipment when performing these skills. In order to provide the highest level of patient care, we will be requesting the use of CARES Act funding to purchase this equipment. The equipment outlined below will be a critical need for the fire and rescue department in helping make the city of Manassas Park a much safer community to live and work within. So just to clarify, before we go to the equipment, that the purchase below, there were 7 different pieces of equipment that will be presented together. All the equipment will be made in separate purchases. They're not being bought together, so there's no savings for that. And this was all put together by various numbers of personnel within the department. So I want to commend them for their work they did. So going through the equipment we're looking to buy, the first is 2 new cardiac monitor defibrillators. Our most recent purchase for this piece of equipment was done on a 5-year lease purchase back in FY18, and it totaled $118,000. Our current quote for 2 new cardiac monitors and defibrillators is for a total of $58,915.30. Based off the CARES Act funding that's going around the country, Stryker understands that there's a chance to make some money, so they've lowered the price 50% on these monitors. So it'll be a good chance for us to save some money by purchasing this now. The other piece of equipment would be 3 new ventilators. The fire department currently has 1 working ventilator in its fleet. The overall goal for us is to have 4 ventilators in order to make sure that every piece of equipment we have will be equipped with 1 for the best care of our citizens. The model we chose to go with is what the region, along with our mutual aid partners of Richland County and Manassas City use, who actually service our citizens as well. The next piece of equipment we're looking at is to buy 4 new Lucas devices. The fire department is in need of replacing 2 older Lucas devices with newer updated technology and improving CPR for the patients for transport to the hospital. We're also looking to purchase 3 new video laryngoscopes. The purchase of 3 new video laryngoscopes, we currently have 1 video laryngoscope in our fleet that's working. Also 3 new thermal cameras. Our current cameras are 10 years old and they're failing. The technology is getting really old. These cameras are really outdated with software and there's no updates available to these cameras. So these cameras will be able to be used in both the fire and the EMS systems. 2 new stair chairs. With all the buildings going in the city, the fire department has a need of replacement stair chair. The purpose of the stair chairs is to move patients from upper level floors. It seems like all of our construction is going upward instead of outward. This is probably the safest way to remove patients from the building down stairwells so they can't walk. And the last one is to upgrade our old and failing automatic electronic defibrillators to all city buildings, police vehicles, and public works vehicles. Currently, the fire department is managing that program for the city. Looking at the future, we're going to have a need for library AEDs. We're going to need new AEDs for our new city hall, as well as additional police cars for patrol officers. The new AEDs are equipped with bilingual language of English and Spanish, and they will definitely walk the lay provider through how to perform CPR. So, just to let you know, all this equipment listed can be purchased under the CARES Act guidelines. This advanced life support equipment is not luxury items for the fire department, but is required equipment that's truly needed to provide the best advanced life support care to our citizens. So the financial impact for the request of the advanced life support and miscellaneous EMS equipment using CARES Act funding will total $242,934.06, with some built-in miscellaneous cost of around $7,000 for any oversight issues, with a total purchase not to exceed $250,000 under the manager's authority. So there was several documents uploaded for your viewing that will support the request, and it's there to provide total transparency of this request. So, any questions?
Before question, I just want to make a couple notes. One, again, when you all adopted the CARES Act Round 2 budget, I said towards end of November, we'd have to come back and really start reviewing everything. We've spent about a third of the total money to this date, so we have a lot more to do. So we're looking at all options of what to do. This is direct medical equipment. So this is easily justified as well, but you'll see the CARES Act amended budget in November, again, taking into account a lot of these changes, more IT spending, more medical equipment spending, but I want to point that out. And then second, to the city attorney's point, you're not authorizing, the total $250,000. It's each individual item that's listed here is a separate authorized procurement, because that's above my level as well. But to be able to go out and procure each of these items, none of which exceed $100,000, which will require a different process for procurement.
Do we have to approve each one of these separate? There need to be a motion for each item or each section of items?
He's gonna go ahead and finalize the purchase itself. You're just authorizing him to.
Okay.
For a total not to exceed that amount.
We're kind of doing an omnibus, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not approving individual purchases. You're just authorizing the city manager to go forward and purchase it on the quotes we have.
Okay.
Well-needed equipment. For those remotely, Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you to the fire department for gathering all this information for the equipment needed. I have a question. Are we purchasing warranties that will allow the fire department, the city, to have a replacement because life is short for all this equipment?
Yes, ma'am, there's warranty for every piece of equipment, and our goal moving forward will be to add this equipment to CIP for replacement down the road, which we didn't have a plan in the current to replace this equipment. We were just kind of waiting until the city got a better financial situation to actually bring this up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas, do you have any comments or questions?
Oh, I have no questions. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I just have one question. How is the fire department's, those protective suits, fire suits? I mean, are they in need of replacement?
We actually just replaced those this year under CIP, and we're replacing those every 10 years.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I'm just glad that we have the CARES Act to upgrade our equipment and make sure we keep all of our residents safe.
All right. Councilmember Minsing?
No questions.
Same here. So the staff recommendation. The staff recommends that the governing body authorize the city manager to spend CARES Act funds to purchase the above described EMS equipment and sign negotiated individual purchase agreements pending review by the city attorney. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? There's one abstention. I abstain. Motion carries. Next item is IT CARES Act laptops.
And that's Don Spady.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Banks and city members, council members. With everything going on with the COVID-19, we're looking at trying to be able to have employees working remotely. With the CARES Act, it's given us the ability to upgrade a bunch of our power stations to laptops with the proper other documentation and new monitors to go with that. So we're looking at right now purchasing through Dell and through Panasonic to get city staff and TD some more mobile ability.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very simple.
I just want to point out this is the same thing as with the fire department. The total amount is excessive or exceeds 100,000, but they're going to be individual contracts. So you're just authorizing, if you approve this, be authorizing the city manager to purchase these. Each one would be using small procurement.
Okay. Thank you, City Attorney. All right, for those remotely, Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker? None. Councilmember Minsing? There's none from me. All right, so the staff recommendation. The staff recommends that the governing body authorize the city manager to approve and sign for the purchase of laptops for city staff utilizing CARES Act funding at a not to exceed cost of $207,000 pending final review by the city attorney. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is that okay? Oppose? Abstain? There's one abstention. I abstain. Motion carries. Next is item 9H, Police Department CARES Act Technology Procurement.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the council.
Good evening.
The matter before you is the Axon Record Standards OSP7 Plus platform.
Currently, the police department utilizes 3 different systems for our record standards and digital evidence storage. These are standalone, non-integrated systems. The Axon platform will provide a cloud-based solution that meets all CJIS requirements. It's 256-bit AES encryption. That also provides redundancies in data storage in 4 separate locations across the U.S. This solution is fully integrated with remote access to footage from our body and in-car cameras, documents, citizen captured evidence, such as if a citizen has a photo, a video that they would like to share, we can send them a link to it, their mobile devices or a computer. They can send that to us, which would go directly into our digital evidence storage. Also expedite the report writing process, easily sharing data with established agency partners. Axon platform will provide officers with the capability to conduct daily functions remotely, allowing our officers and staff to practice social distancing and aid in reducing possible transmission of COVID-19. This enhanced platform can be procured via CARES Act funding at a not to exceed cost of $390,000 and will not increase current forecasted spending on annual maintenance of existing systems in FY 2022 and beyond. This is essentially an upgrade of our existing system to allow for greater social distancing and digital interfacing with our residents, with no increase to annual maintenance costs, thus a 0 budget impact.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
This would require a sole source procurement, and in order to do that, you'd have to first approve a resolution declaring a sole source, and I have that resolution that I can read into the record for you if you'd like me to do that now, and then you can take a vote on that, unless there's discussion on this or you have questions before we get to that.
All right, let me first go through the questions. For those remotely, Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I found that question. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No questions. Thanks.
For those in person, Councilmember Shoemaker?
So this does more than what we have now?
Yes, sir.
I was interested when I was reading through it, and it said that that citizens can, like, you can do the link and then they can upload things to you.
Correct.
Like through a secure link or something like that. So they can do pictures, they can do video, or can they provide statements too? I mean, can they do like a written statement? Does it have that capability, or like they could do something in writing and then send it through the system and it would pop up for you guys?
I'll have to check on that. I can't answer that right now. I have to check back on that.
Okay.
But it does allow us also to share our records with the Commonwealth Attorney for prosecution, so we can send a whole digital case file without having to meet in person or print documents off, and we can limit access to that as well as far as timelines and things like that.
So now, does the Commonwealth's Attorney, they're able to already open up that they run on this system, or?
Prince William County utilizes something very similar.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Does Manassas as well, or no?
I do not know, sir.
Okay. And if it increases your capability and it increases distancing, and I think it's a great thing.
And Axon, just like Esri, is kind of like the premier in these services. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So again, we're just updating our technology.
Yeah.
No questions.
No questions? Don, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Dean, is do we have a motion to approve the resolution as stated by city attorney?
That will be the recommended motion after I read it.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so there's a couple of parts. So Major Reinhardt sent a memo to the city manager requesting sole source procurement. I'll read that first. It's referenced in the resolution. It says, following research and evaluation, Axon Enterprise, Inc. was identified as the sole vendor offering a complete integrated solution that meets the Manassas Park Police Department's requirements for records and standards, software integrating into our body, worn cameras, and taser CEWs. The police department has utilized the Axon Taser body camera system for the past 9 years. The product has provided outstanding service, satisfying all the agency's evidence storage, video, and audio recording needs. There is no other vendor operating in Virginia that can provide this capability. Okay, based upon that, I drafted the following resolution. Whereas the Manassas Park Police Department has determined that integrating its record standards and digital evidence storage systems is the best interest of the department. Whereas, as stated in the attached memorandum from Major Reinhardt of Manassas Park Police Department, there was only one source practically available that would integrate the department's record standards and digital evidence storage systems. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the governing body of the City of Manassas Park hereby intends to award one or more contracts for an integrated record standards and digital evidence storage system pursuant to sole source provisions of subsection 2.2-4303E of the Virginia Public Procurement Act to the following company in the amount stated: Axon Enterprise, Inc., not to exceed $390,000. Be it further resolved that the mayor, vice mayor, city attorney, and city manager are authorized to take any and all actions on behalf of the city in conjunction with awarding a contract for an integrated record standards and digital evidence storage system in the amount stated, and then would be reads approved by the governing body of the City of Manassas Park at its regularly scheduled meeting held on the 20th day of October 2020.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the stated resolution by city attorney?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Now look at the second one. The staff recommends that the police department requests that the governing body authorizes the city manager to negotiate and sign a contract with Axon for this proposed upgrade pending city attorney review, and utilize CARES Act funds to cover the purchase/implementation cost. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? There's one abstention. I abstain. Motion carries. All right. On to item 9I. It's waive conflict of interest. Martin Crims, Vanderpool, Frostick, and Nashanian PC deeds of easement plat.
Vanderpool, Frost, and Machine currently represents the city's Department of Social Services. You recently approved a conditional use permit for Patriot Disposal. They have a site plan and that's brought to the city, and they also need to have certain easements that are granted to the city. One of the requirements of that is they prepare what's called a deed of easements. And I've attached I forwarded a plat that was provided to me, and substantially the form that was probably going to be finally approved. But basically they've asked that we waive the conflict and allow them to prepare the deed of easements for this. It has nothing to do with the representation of social services. I'm going to be on the other side representing the city on the deed of easements. I see no problem at all with waiving that conflict, and I recommend that you do approve the waiver.
Okay, thanks. Let's go with those participating remotely. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, another thing, I don't see a problem with this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker?
That doesn't sound like it's going to be a conflict. So.
Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
None from me. So staff recommends that the governing body approve a conflicts waiver to allow Vanderpool, Frostick, and Ashanian PC to represent John and Jean Pogue and or their company, Patriot Disposal, for the preparation and finalization of a deed of easements for Lot 49, Phase 2, Connor Center. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. All right. And on to item 10, city manager's report.
Good evening again. While I share my screen, just to update you, we do have over 350 participants so far signed up for our socially distanced safe Halloween event, so that's good news.
Yay.
And related to CARES Act, we still don't have nowhere near the sufficient amount for the child care program, so it doesn't look like that program will occur, so that's going to be a big part of the CARES Act budget amendment that we get. So let me bring this up here.
So have we officially abandoned that, or are we waiting?
Still want to wait a few more days, but it's not looking like we'll be able to get there. Okay. So what I want to discuss tonight, with the rezoning approved and discussion of the downtown signage that we had a few weeks ago, and just all the work that I've been doing with Norton Scott for the design of the entire development. The topics have come up of signage, so we're going to have on the plaza a large screen as well with movies, football games, other things going on, which will be facing the plaza. So you can imagine the back is going to be a Manassas Drive, so we're going to want to put some kind of nice signage on the back there so it looks good. So there's been a lot of discussions of signage. Before we move too far ahead, I want to make sure that our city and our downtown especially has consistency in terms of our signage, colors, what's the brand essentially, right? That's what I want to talk about tonight. So before I do that though, just to, when we did the retreat now 3 years ago, we talked about kind of a step-by-step process, and I briefed the newer council members as they join on what we've been doing. And really the first step, when we agreed that we were going to go ahead and try to pursue some downtown development after a few months of discussion after the retreat, the first step was really doing the data analytics about what the market can support. And then that guided our zoning discussions later about what was feasible, and it also guided our concept planning for what could work in our downtown as well. After that was done, we developed that RFP. We sent that out to get the public-private partnership consultant, and then also to try to secure developers for phases 3 and 4. Those two were done. So we've secured the developers, we've done all the analytics, and now we're really in phases 3 and 4 of, even though we're still planning, all the details of design and everything for the downtown, we're really moving. My priority the last couple months has really been meeting with businesses and starting to discuss who's going to fill in this new downtown, and then how do we get customers to this new downtown as well, because it takes a few years for successful town centers to really take off. So that's what we're on right now. That's the priority focus. And in terms of number 4, how do we secure customers? Well, the number one thing, of course, is the product. You have to have a good product for people to come, and that's what number 3 is about, right? Getting the right business fit into the downtown. You can't just, have nothing here and just do a bunch of events in our current downtown and marketing for what purpose? There's no product. So we got to get the product first. But once you have the product in place to help drive that customer base to that product, events, very popular events that drive, hundreds and then sometimes even thousands of people to your downtown via festivals, really helps with securing populations to people, customers to come to the downtown, and it's also helpful for marketing of the downtown for future dining and entertainment and shopping purposes. And a big piece of events and product marketing is going to be marketing in general, right? Is creating that brand for that downtown, for our city. What is that brand, and what's our marketing strategy going to be to let the world, Northern Virginia, know that we're open for business, right? That we have this town center, and really the only modern town center within this 25 to 28 minute drive time distance, right, in this area. So we want to capture that market, at least that 15-minute drive time that we always looked at as that tertiary market. If we capture that, the revenues that we'll be getting are tremendous. So they'll exceed kind of all the forecasts that we have. That's the ultimate goal. Our analytics were based off of kind of a primary marketplace, a very conservative analysis. We want to get to tertiary marketing or markets, which requires a marketing effort. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. So what are these, right? These are very recognizable. You can notice that companies, private sector keeps it very simple, right? Some of them don't even have, you can see the Panda Express, right? They don't even have their name written on there. You just know what it is when you look at it. Same thing with McDonald's, right? It's that when you look at these, you know what we're talking about. It represents that institution. But it's not just the private sector that does this. So the marketing firm that I'm talking with right now that assisted my efforts in Lovettsville as well, these are examples of some of the branding efforts that they've done for local governments. These are all local government brands, and you can see some of them are too wordy, right? They always try to advise that keep it down, try to come up with the image. You can see the difference between this one, a lot more words compared to this one, right? But some of them get it right, and you can see even some that have more writing, like Wake Forest on the bottom right. It's a simple concept with a nice logo as well. It's identifying what that logo is that you want to have as part of either your downtown. You can see some of these are just like downtown Laurel, right? So you can market just your downtown, you can market your entire city, or you can do both, right? But it's not just the private sector that does the branding effort in the marketing. It is local governments if they want to help drive business success. Here's our current city branding. What I did is I took kind of our seal, what's on our website. Our comprehensive plan has a slogan for the community. I'm not sure was it ever officially adopted as kind of the official kind of logo, but where Community Matters shows up a lot on our comprehensive plan, so I simply put that on there. But we don't really have a lot of marketing materials as that, right? A lot of jurisdictions fail because they'll use their seal as their marketing logo, and that's not really it. That's more kind of our emblem as an organization, right? What should be on our official paperwork, what's behind the mayor, the vice mayor in the meetings. That's what you want to use your seal for, not for marketing a downtown or a city as well. I think the schools and Parks and Rec do a much better job with what they have right now. You can see the schools, they have the nice catchphrase, right? The expectations of excellence, they have the bell there, right? That's kind of their, and they're not even really in the marketing business. They're not trying to bring in business, but you can see that's a good kind of identifier. That's more of a logo than just an official seal of an organization. Same thing with Parks and Rec, their coloration, what they do. They really do a better job of kind of marketing giving their entity a different feel. You can see the city of Manassas, what they have, and the historic heart, modern beat. You'll see the top left where it says Manassas, Virginia, and it has the nice kind of drawing on top. A lot of their brand slogan will have that historic heart, modern beat along with that picture up there as well. Not consistent with their signage because everything's about timing. They may have created some of their branding efforts after. That's what I want to avoid. I want to make sure we understand where we want to go as a city with our branding, and then plan our signage based off that. But we certainly want to have a welcome to Manassas Park sign. It can be something like that, letting people know that we're different from Manassas, and now you're entering Manassas Park as well, especially on that 28. We want to market our businesses also on that entrance feature as well, market our events, market different community components as part of that. And again, you want to have different, like the developer was talking about with the now entering the downtown or whatever we end up calling this. We have to kind of come up with a firm title because we call it downtown, sometimes we call it city center. This specific development here is called Village of Manassas Park, but for the entire thing, Village of Manassas Park, Park 170 or 10 or whatever phase 4 is going to be called, we're going to have to come up with an agreed upon name that we market as what this is, and I'll show you some examples here in the next few slides. But this is what the city of Manassas does.
We did have a sign, just so you know. We did have a sign on 28. Apparently, I think somebody hit it with their car, and we had to take it down and never got replaced. But we did have signage on 28 at a different point, and then it got ruined.
Yeah, we'll have to think about how we secure it as well. Yeah, so some of our other neighbors do. I think Manassas actually does a better job than our other neighbors in terms of marketing. But you can see like Falls Church, they're the little city, I guess. Fairfax City, live, life, connected. So everyone kind of has their slogans. Again, I think Manassas does a much better job, but who really does a better job are town centers, right? And I really like the One Loudon. And you can see how they integrate that with their signage, right? They have their logo up there, whatever that the O is from 111, right, and the color features, and they integrate that into their different signage and welcome features in their downtown or their town center, if you will. Same thing with Fairfax Corner. We have the F and the C written there. That you can see in their signage below there. They have that F, C up there, so they're consistent with their logo and their branding in their signage. That's something we need to get to as well. We need to do a better job than our competitors, if you will, right? I think Falls Church, Fairfax City, they just have so much more natural competitive advantage than we do because of Route 7, Route 50, Route 29. They really don't have to do a lot of marketing. The marketing's free for them with all those vehicles driving it, right? We have to actually do a much better job of marketing. We don't have that robust history of being a commercial attraction point. So we need to let the world know that we are that. And we're going to have that modern town center in our downtown. And what is that town center? What do we want to market it as? And that's where we need help, right?
I didn't know that Fairfax Corner had a coastal flat.
Yes.
Yeah,
In the Aussies.
So support is needed, not just for the stuff that I've been talking about right now, our brand, our catchphrase, our logo, signage, or welcome signage. We need more help beyond that. Wayfinding signage, right? Directing people where to go. And these were all provided by a marketing firm that I'm engaging with right now, right? Marketing materials, like you see the city's done, right? How we're going to market ourselves. So providing different marketing materials for us to utilize in any advertisements that we want to do, just like Parks and Rec. We'll do heavy advertisement of the rec center. We're going to want to start advertising our downtown once that is established. You can see the banner concepts as well that we're going to want to put up, and then guides that we're going to want to put on our website, have as handouts that have maps of different components of our downtown or of our city. However, we want to market our parks as well. I think those are valuable assets, very underrated assets that we have at both Signal Hill and Lewis Park, and we do want to market as an attraction area for within its 15-minute drive time for recreation, and then also the downtown for commercial opportunities as well. So we need that support, that professional support to get something that's tested, proven to work from a marketing standpoint as well. So what I'm doing is bringing in the professional marketing firm to assist in this effort. I'm using the existing economic development budget to fund that. But again, I want to keep you all informed about this. What they're going to do, of course, is research what the city is, right? Our history, our present, and our future. They're going to take a lot of pictures, professional pictures, to help us with our marketing. They're going to solicit your all's input and the public. We'll probably have a lot of surveys, concepts put up, right? Different kind of interactive features where people can kind of grade different concepts, different logos, things like that. We want to have the community engaged in this concept. And then again, come back to you all after all that effort and present to you what their recommended options are for logos, the taglines, signage examples, right? Once we get that all approved, we now have a book to work off of to guide future signage acquisition, to guide North Scott as they develop their signage for the public plaza and the welcome to the downtown. We want to have that all standardized versus piecemealing it, and that's what that guide will be. It'll have also, they give us a bunch of digital files as well for consistency in text, right? So how for any marketing using kind of the same text, color, palettes, things like that to help with our marketing efforts as well. So that's what they'll come back with and use that again. That will guide us for the future for both downtown and city signage to ensure consistency, to ensure it's something that is market proven, right? To help market the city. It'll just take us that next level of rebranding our city and kind of changing. We've come so far, right? And everything we've accomplished the last few years and where we're going. We really are transforming the city, and we want to make sure we're getting that message out. And again, even if we're in a good place, town centers take time. You got to really invest in that market, and you got to do events to really help that town center take off. So that's kind of the next step. I wanted to let you all know kind of what's coming, what to expect, and for you all to start thinking about really what the city means to you all, right? Where we're headed and what inputs you would want to provide in this process as well, and the public to start thinking about that as well. So are there any questions about this?
We start for those remote. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I'm just glad that we are moving forward. We are working towards these signs and marketing. So looking forward to see all the ideas the staff brings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
Yes, regarding the public input, is it gonna be residents of Manassas Park, or are you gonna get input from people that are not familiar with this area? Because my concern is that to this day, people that don't live in Manassas Park, they think they were part of Manassas City. So, I want to make sure that we're able to market ourselves and distinguish ourselves from Manassas City.
Yeah, and that's the balance that the marketers want to take community and governing body input in terms of who we are and how we want to present ourselves, but balance that with what works from a marketing perspective as well. And what we decide to do from a city perspective, right, for certain things are fine from just a community standpoint, but how we choose to market ourselves has to be that balance between community desire and also what works. And this firm, they consulted multiple jurisdictions across Northern. They know this market very well. They know kind of what works, and they do this across the country as well. So they know what works from a brand success standpoint as well, not just community input, but you also want to get that community buy-in in what we're doing as well.
Okay. Is that it, Councilmember Sendejas?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. Right now, I feel like, the city doesn't really market itself appropriately, especially for residents and the business community. So, creating some type of identity is much needed. And I think this is going to be very beneficial for the downtown and future development as well.
Thanks. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah, I'd be interested. I guess I was kind of disappointed when I saw the Palisades. They changed their name and took Manassas Park out of their name. I think it was the Palisades that did that. I saw the recent signage and it's something else. It's like the Point at Palisades or something instead of, I don't know, it was something, whatever it was before, but I was kind of disappointed because the less that they market themselves in Manassas Park, it just defeats what we're trying to do, because then nobody associates that where they are is where we are, and so it, I think we really need to get, maybe some other business buy-in on this, because they need to be identifying themselves the same way we are, because then we're at cross purposes if we're not all rowing in the same direction, so to speak. And, so that.
And the hope would be, as we're successful with this city center or downtown, whatever we end up calling it, and we have that marketing, signage, materials, if that's a hot sell, then these other residential units or others are going to want to be a part of that, right? They're going to want to let their customers know that they're actually within that sphere as well. So the hope would be that they would start also trying to mimic our branding and concepts as well.
The only thing, and I just was thinking of this while you were talking, is one thing we can't do is have it abbreviated, like downtown DMP, because that sounds like dump. So that actually, I know that sounds random, but that's not something we can actually brand. I don't think that would be appropriate, and I think it would give people the wrong impression. I know, but we're talking about whether we're going to call it downtown or not. Yeah. Like that, if you kind of abbreviate it, and some of those you see abbreviations, or that would not be one that would be good for the city. So we'd have to figure out a different way to do it.
That's it.
Well, for now, yeah.
DNP.
Make sure to bring that up.
Yeah, no
well,
DNP. He doesn't.
They actually, when people get personalized license plates, they actually look at the, I think it's in Virginia, they actually look at the plates and then they turn them upside down to make sure there's no weird, strange words, or because they don't want people doing that.
Councilmember Mincy.
This is an exciting next step. And we've got people who live in Manassas Park who don't know they live in Manassas Park, so marketing is necessary.
I agree.
I got a question about the public input. So are you gonna have a town hall or advertise on the website?
Yeah, the goal, at least from my initial engagement with the marketing firm, and I haven't signed anything yet, but they're gonna have a session where it's like a town hall session where they solicit feedback, but we also wanna have things on on a website or something to showcase options, and they can grade that. That's what or via social media, start grading things and commenting on them, but then also be present to answer questions, hear directly from the public as well.
Okay.
But again, you want a marketing firm to present options that that actually will work from a marketing standpoint, and then the community is the one just telling what they accept as a direction that we want to go as well. You want non-professionals developing things that won't necessarily work from a marketing standpoint.
I mean, I saw this with Richmond. Everyone knows RVA because of their marketing and the banners all over the city of Richmond, and they did a good job of identifying themselves. And I can definitely agree we need some professionals. Yeah.
Will they maybe present or do something with the high schoolers? They're the next generation.
Engage with the high schoolers to get their input.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll open it up to everyone. The more sessions I have, I mean, the more the cost will go up, and I have a very tight budget to keep everything in place here, so that might be a challenge. But hopefully we can encourage them to participate in the grading and everything else.
Okay, awesome.
Is the idea that they're gonna have, they'll ask and then they'll kind of come up with like 10 or 12 mock-ups, I mean, is that kind of what it is? Like, where they kind of ask us what we're kind of looking for, and they do, and then they kind of come up with like 10 or 12 examples, and we're kind of, we're gonna pick the one we like the most, so to speak, or?
Yeah, they usually like to come and tour the city itself, research our history, and talk with people about what the community means to them. And then, they come up with concepts, and then you start grading the concepts, the colors, the taglines, the logos. We start grading them, and then just to hear feedback. And then it might be a couple step process with you all where they show you. I think the popular one did not win because the council was like, no, we actually like this one, which was like second place, which was probably even better. So we want to come back and get your all's input and then finalize and then present the final product.
It's probably a good idea to stay away from Civil War related things, just because of how divisive it is, and also Manassas they kind of did, that's theirs anyway, and I don't know that I would want to enter into that. I mean, just because if they kind of look at the area and they may be like, oh, you got a big battlefield here. I mean, they may come up with something like that, and I maybe just steer them away from that because I think it would be divisive.
I think we should be forward-looking, future-looking, kind of what we're going to be as a community.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. That's it?
That's it.
Awesome, great. All right, next item is a closed meeting. City Attorney.
All right, we actually have 4 items to go into closed meeting to discuss. So my recommended motion is as follows. That the governing body go into closed meeting for 4 matters. First, consultation with the city attorney pertaining to probable litigation related to the city's use of eminent domain, the acquisition of property interests, and the declaration of protective covenants and restrictions that was recorded against properties within Congress Center. The second is consultation with the city attorney pertaining to probable litigation related to the use of eminent domain for the acquisition of Lot 1A, Congress Center, for the new City Hall, public parking, and the public road. The third is consultation with the city attorney pertaining to actual litigation related to the eviction of a holdover tenant on the recently acquired property from the Leatherburys on Park Center Court. Those 3 are pursuant to paragraph 7 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia. And the fourth is consultation with the city attorney regarding the scope and terms and scope of the proposed agreement with Virginia Railway Express for operation, use, and maintenance of the VRE parking garage and the conveyance of the real property for the same. That is pursuant to paragraphs 8 and 29 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
All right, do we have a motion for the motion as stated by the city attorney?
Go ahead.
So moved.
Second?
Vice Mayor Banks?
Aye. Yeah, Councilmember Javed? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, before we go into closed meeting, can I claim 30 seconds to address the topic?
Sure, but go ahead.
Why don't you?
I guess this is,
Yeah, wait, we have a motion.
Hold on, we got a
on the
motion.
table right now. I want to go ahead and rescind your motion in second, and then we can.
Okay.
bring it up second.
Okay, let's.
I finally got to move something and I gotta rescind it.
I tried really hard too. Hi.
Make a motion to
rescinded.
rescind it.
Oh, can he go to the part for the good of the city after closed session? We gotta come back on the record anyway.
Well, I guess we didn't actually vote on it, right? So you just have to withdraw your motion, right?
I mean, I can wait after the closed meeting, that's fine.
We've got this. Just withdraw.
You just withdraw your motion, and
I withdraw my motion.
second can agree, and then.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we've got to withdraw and like, agree.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Okay.
asked that I don't have to read that again. We just refer back to
Yeah. we were.
Good thing we don't pay by the word.
Wait for Lana.
Yes, please.
Okay, Councilmember Javed, floor is yours.
Thank you. No, it's not gonna take too much time, but I had my neighbor and a couple of people reach out to me regarding high amounts of water bills that was recently sent out. And I promised them I'll find out an update if the city manager knows anything that's going on. Some of these bills were in the thousands, and they have not been adjusted. It's been about almost a week.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing that up. Did we post the message yet? Okay, we did share a message on the city website tonight and on social media. It's something I did meet with the staff today and the treasurer, because we did see that post last night on Facebook, and then we immediately started investigating what happened. So there was 26 accounts that there was an error, a system error on what they actually owed one of them was even more severe than that. It was a commercial property. So we've identified those, and actually the treasurer's been reaching out to all 26 customers directly via email and phone calls to let them know about the error. But if anyone sees a bill that's excessively high, that's clearly an error, please contact the treasurer. The treasurer's been trying to contact everyone as well to let them know. We have issues. It's time to move to smart meters. We've been, delaying that because of our financial position, but there's just been too many incidences beyond this over reading, right? There's actually been more instances of not reading, like zero. So we just haven't been really billing businesses and residents really what they have. That's been the more prevalent. We continue to identify this. We've had one issue where the lead person dealing with this has been out because of COVID-19 related issues. So from a staffing perspective, that impacted the treasurer. That person would have been usually manually making changes, but that shouldn't be the process. We should have a smart meter system that integrates properly with our financial system, so it doesn't require manual updates, because that's what ends up happening is you end up getting these errors when you have someone who's out who was understanding what the process was, and now that process, no one knows that process had to be done to do those manual fixes, because our system and our meters are not functional. So it is something that we need to pursue sooner rather than later. Expect to see that in the CIP for FY22 for the water and sewer fund. It was something we pushed back beyond post downtown, but for a jurisdiction not to have an AMI system, a smart reader at this in 2020, it's backwards. And we really need to kind of get up with the times in terms of technology. And just being backwards has consequences like this, where you're prone to these kinds of errors. So that's, but we do apologize to those 26 accounts who received that, and we thank them for letting us know and for reaching out to us immediately.
Okay. Wow. And thank you, Councilmember Javed, for bringing that up.
Well, sure thing. Thanks for the update, Laszlo.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the closed meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the motion as stated previously by City Attorney?
So moved.
Second. I know. What the heck?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Remotely? Opposed? Abstain? Motion approved. Motion carries.
And I will call you all directly.
I like that Miriam
All right,
and
so
Hector weren't even on.
Hector and Miriam and
Thanks so much.
Asib, you'll get a call